Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Tonight, Martin Kenny returns to the show. Martin will take us through his cosmic clock and calendar research, where he explains the cycles and ages of creation. This show is a follow-up to Martin's Cosmic Creation, Matter, Time, and Space presentation, which is recommended viewing as a prerequisite to this show. And so without further ado, here's Martin Kenny. Well, folks, Martin Kenny is back with us today, and this is part 2 of the video and the presentation that we have been promising. It's taken some time. Some technology upgrades has helped us tremendously in being able to pull this together. So I think everybody's going to enjoy this show. Martin's going to major on his work and his research that has to do with what he's referring to as the cosmic clock or cosmic calendar. And we will cover some other aspects, prerequisites, so that you can understand the cosmic clock and cosmic calendar a little better. We're not going to just jump in on you. We'll set the table a little bit. So with that, Martin, thank you so much for coming back. And I have the following topics that we're going to talk about. Let me know if I've got them right. We're going to do a quick overview of the electromagnetic cosmic egg universe. Then we're going to talk to the center of the Earth, which many may know as Mount Meru, Mount Olympus, and the Olympians. Then we'll get into the 4 physical earthly realms, the 4 solar systems, the 4 root races, and the sub-root races. And we will then get into the creation of the universe from the center. So these realms are birthed from the center of Earth, as you and I have discussed. Actually, I should say as you have taught me. Then we're going to talk about the cosmic wheel, which is what I referred to before as the cosmic clock or calendar. We're going to talk about the timeline in this realm, which is 6,000 years. And then we will wrap up the presentation with Martin giving us his perspectives and his ideas and thoughts about 2020 and beyond. So with that, Martin, I hope that's the right outline. Welcome back.
Yeah, well put, Mike. Thank you for having me back. I know we've tried this a few times. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time we've tried recording this.
Yep.
But obviously the universe was saying it wasn't the right time for it. But I think it feels like the right time now. So I'm really excited to be doing this.
Yeah, and the video is coming in crystal clear. So this is a very, very good thing. Okay, so where did you want to start, Martin? Did you want to start with an overview of the electromagnetic cosmic egg universe, just so that we can give the folks a little brush up on what this is going to be based upon, your cosmic clock and calendar?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, or eggshell, obviously our Earth is a plane, flat and motionless, as many of you will know now. But it's not just in free space, obviously. It's not just floating in nothingness. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to creation. And when I did my research, I realized that there's something called electromagnetism. And this is what makes up all physical reality. And in fact, this is what God is. God is an energy. God is a force. So God is not a physical thing. God is an energy or a spirit, if you like. And that spirit could be translated in modern day terms as energy, frequency, light, sound. That is what the creator is, but intelligent, right? Not the way science teaches us that it's an inane force. It's actually an intelligent force. Right. So the cosmic egg is a plane, and it sits diametrically, or the Earth rather sits diametrically inside a big electromagnetic torus field, much like this one, right? So that would be the Earth in the middle of this cosmic egg, or this toroidal field, okay? And the Earth is sitting on the great waters or the great deep. At the moment, as many of you will know, those who've been following our videos, will know that our Earth is divided into concentric rings of land, right? So at the moment we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 concentric physical rings of land, 4 realms, 4 domains, 4 Earths, if you like. And each of these is obviously covered by its own electromagnetic torus field, what many of us in the flat earth community are calling the dome. So the lands at the center have got their dome, which is the aurora borealis from our perspective. We've got our dome, or our Van Allen belt, which is the aurora australis, which is on the outside, on the south polar rim. The lands beyond our south pole have got their own electromagnetic field, and so does this last one. And of course, many of you will now know that each of these realms has got its own solar system, okay, its own solar and ecosystem. So the center, Mercury, or the black sun, is the sun and moon of the central realm, what we call Eden at the moment, right? That's beyond the aurora borealis. In our realm, our solar system and ecosystems are governed by our sun and moon, okay? Apollo and Artemis, our sun and moon that we see every day. The realm outside us, their solar and ecosystem is governed by their sun and moon, which is Mars and Venus. Mars is the sun, and Venus is the moon of this outer land. And the lost lands, the ones right on the outside, their solar systems and ecosystems are governed by their sun and moon, Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn being the sun, Jupiter being the moon. And of course, above that, right at the top, above all the torus fields, we've got what's known as the firmament. And this is where all the stars are, the constellations and the stars and the heavenly bodies are in the firmament above all these toroidal fields and all these solar systems. Okay, so that's the plane above within the torus field. In fact, right, so very similar to this. So if that's the earth or the great deep and the earth is sitting on there, that will be the firmament above, right?
So the firmament, Martin, would be the stars that we see at night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a bigger model over here, which I could show you on. Okay. So what we have is we've got the earth plane, right? All the different concentric rings, that one, that one, that one, and the one right at the center. I've put a torus field on our one, so you can see that a bit clearly, right? That's our sun and our moon. Torus field above the central realm, okay? And then if I zoom out, you can see all the other celestial bodies, you know, Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Sun, Moon, right? And then, of course, right at the top, we've got our firmament, right? I'll turn on the lights in a bit so you can see the twinkling stars above us very clearly. I'll do that a bit later.
Now, Martin, a question I have for you, and I know we've talked about this before, but so when NASA talks about Earth being a sphere, or Neil deGrasse Tyson would refer to it as an oblate spheroid, is it possible that what they're talking about is a construct of Earth which factors in the toroidal field around it?
Absolutely. So like we've said from the beginning, you know, we're told a lot of half-truths, or as you taught me, the profane truths, is it? Profane truths?
The profane, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right in saying that, you know, when they say that the Earth is a sphere, perhaps the profanity in that is that it's not, the physical Earth itself is not a sphere, but there are spheres to the construct of our universe, which is the electromagnetic torus fields, which would be, well, similar to that. So the Earth would be the plane of inertia at the center, and of course the torus field would be what you're seeing, the net that's encompassing the field of Earth.
Okay, and so when they say that the Earth is rotating at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, it's conceivable that what they're referring to is perhaps the movement of the toroidal field itself.
Absolutely. So my understanding, or my understanding, is that these toroidal fields are all being governed or being, they're like cogs in a clock, if you like. And the pin, the central pin, is the vortex. So at the center of the Earth, right in the middle, is what we know as the axis mundi, or the central vortex, or the black hole, if you like. And this is what's controlling the motions of all the different electromagnetic torus fields. And obviously, like a wheel, they're all turning at different speeds, in different motions, much like mainstream science tells us. So I would imagine that our toroidal field might be spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. Like science says that the Earth is spinning it at 1,000 miles an hour. And then the next one maybe at 66,000 miles an hour. And the next one maybe at 450,000 miles an hour. That's how I interpret that.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that's factual. That's just an interpretation that I've come to discern.
A possibility.
A possibility.
Yes. So let me ask this then also, Martin. They also refer to extraterrestrials and outer space. So again, it's not all lies.
No.
It's just decoding the wording and how they're communicating their message. So when they speak about extraterrestrial or outer space, what are they referring to?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question, Mike, because like we said in the last interview that we did, when I discovered flat Earth, immediately, like most people, I discarded anything to do with space. I discarded anything to do with extraterrestrials or any of that. I immediately said, well, that's all out the window. And I assumed that the Earth must be this plane, nothing else, with some sort of barrier, so in some sort of fishbowl or some sort of prison, and we're stuck in here, and God knows what's out there. But when I regained my senses, after I stopped being mad and upset, and I started looking at things rationally, I realized that that's a bit childish, right? We can't throw the baby out of the bathwater. Just like all the ancient cultures said that the Earth was flat and motionless, every ancient culture said it. Every ancient culture, including the Bible and the religious texts, all talk about extraterrestrial beings, beings from other worlds, from other realms, from other places that once visited us. You know, there are carvings, there are stone statues, there's literature, texts, cave paintings, all depicting these beings from other worlds. So when I looked at that, I thought, well, how do I rationalize that? How do I explain that? We can't just say, oh, the Earth is flat now, so all of that is lies as well. Obviously not. That's ridiculous. I then realized that there must be some more to it. There must be extra terrains of land, perhaps, right? Which is where the word extraterrestrial comes from. Extra meaning more, terrain meaning land, extraterrestrial, more land, beings from other lands. So obviously that led me down the road of researching the cosmic egg and coming up with this model, showing all the different realms with all the different beings and everything else. And this is well documented. Those who watched my Cosmic Creation Part 1, I've shown you that I'm not just making this up. There's literature, there's mythology, there's religious texts that all describe what I'm showing you here, if you're looking at it from the right perspective and in the right context.
So then extraterrestrial, really the way we should interpret it, Martin, is extra land, and outer space would be space outside of our domain or realm.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. And outer space as well could be up. So outer space as well could be up. So this area, right, between the Earth, right, between this Earth, the plane of the Earth, and the firmament above, this is space. This is the ether, what people call the ether. So that's space as well. So there is outer space upwards, and there is outer space outwards, and inner space inwards, obviously, if you're looking at it from the perspective of where we are.
So Martin, when they say that, when I say they, I mean NASA says that they cannot get past the Van Allen belts, what they're telling us is they cannot get past the electromagnetic toroidal field.
So yes, perhaps there are spaceships that NASA has sent up into high Earth orbit. Perhaps the ISS does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying perhaps there is something similar to that. I know the one that they show us, a lot of it has been debunked. So what they show us perhaps is not reality. It's all in a studio. But I don't discredit the fact that they might be sending ships or rockets up into high altitude above the Earth. So somewhere above here, right? 90,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 150,000 feet off the ground, right? But they cannot get past this electromagnetic field, the Van Allen belt, just like NASA tells us. So yes, we're exploring space above our Earth, but we've not yet been able to leave this space in at least 6,000 years or 3,000 years, according to my research.
Okay, and I know we will get into the possibility of being able to move between the domains and realms, so I don't want to get ahead of the presentation here. So, okay, so I think it's important that we talked about this because there are a lot of terms and terminology that is put out there by NASA that many folks, especially in the flat Earth community, have just said that it's all lies. And it's not all lies. It has a thread of truth. And what's the old saying? A good lie retains a thread of truth, right?
Absolutely.
So, so you actually, your work has brought me to this point as well, because at one point I was thinking also that it's all a lie and it's not worth listening to. And then you begin to understand that no, there is truth in what they're telling us. It goes back to what we were saying before. It is it's the profane versus the illuminated or the initiates, trying to bridge that gap. If you don't close that gap, then you're going to have two distinct views, worldviews. You're going to have the profane and you're going to have the initiated. And so your work is, again, is helping to close that gap. Okay, Martin, so where did you want to go next? Is there anything more to talk about with regard to an overview of your cosmic egg theory, or would you like to move to the center of the Earth? It's up to you.
Yeah, I just want to close this sort of topic with a question that's been posed to me recently by a lot of flat earthers. A lot of them have said, well, you know, you're coming up with this theory. You're doing exactly the same thing that mainstream science has done. You're theorizing. There's no fact to any of this cosmic egg stuff. There's no fact to extraterrestrials of lands. There's no fact to any of this that you're preaching or you're saying. And a lot of people have attacked me that way, particularly within the religious circles, naturally. Interestingly enough, when you really break all of this down, as far as I know, there isn't a single photograph of the Earth, flat or ball. All of them are CGI. Every single image we've seen of the flat Earth is CGI, just like the ball, right?
Right.
There isn't any proof to prove any scientific evidence that's observable, testable, and repeatable showing that there's a dome above us or anything above us for that matter, right? There isn't. There's theories from books like the Bible. The Bible is a theoretic book like any other science book. So is the Quran. So are the Vedic texts. Everything in our existence is theoretic. Now, I'm not saying that there are things that we can't verify. So there are things that we can verify observably and testably and repeatedly. For instance, we can measure and test the fact there is no curvature. There is no measurable curvature, right? So that is a fact. There is no motion, right? There is no measurable motion to the Earth. That is a fact. Those are the two facts. Those are the only two facts we have with regards to the construct of where we are. Everything else is a theory. The question then becomes, how do we build upon those two facts? The facts that, you know, there's no measurable curvature and there's no measurable motion. Can we now build a theory that makes sense and that is logical based on this foundation? And this is what I've done. So all I've done is I've looked at that and I've said, right, how do I build the universe, right, from those facts? Now, Christians will say, I'm only going to refer to my Bible. The theories in my Bible are the only theories I'm going to build the universe on. I'm going to discredit everything else. Scientific people will say, I'm going to use my science books. That's my book. Muslims will say, I'm going to use my Quran. That's my reference. Vedics will say, I'm going to use my Vedic scriptures. That's my reference. I'm saying, you're all wrong. I'm saying, you're all wrong, but you're also all right. Right? The truth does not belong to any one culture, religion, race, texts, or any one source. Right? For those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, you must be open-minded enough to critically look at everything, all the information presented, from mainstream science to the Bible, to the Quran, to the Vedic texts, everything, all of it, mythologies, ancient scriptures, all of it, folklore. We have to look at all of it and then try and discern or connect the dots and say, right, if all of these are saying one thing, that must be the closest thing to the truth, which is what syncretism is. So this is not hocus pocus crazy stuff. This is natural, intelligent, scientific research, right? Looking at everything with a critical eye and an open mind.
That's an excellent point, Martin. And I absolutely agree that your work is based on valid inputs. In other words, it would be extremely bad research or bad form to disregard information that has been left for us. The Vedic texts, the Dogons, as an example, who still survive today, the Mayans, the Egyptians, the Chinese, the Greeks. We can go on and on and on.
Yep.
And what syncretism does is it brings it all together. And when you do bring it all together, what you come to realize is that all of these ancient cultures, they were all telling the same story. They may have different names for the gods within their mythology and so on, but at the end of the day, it syncs up.
Yep.
And if that information's out there and you disregard it, then what you're doing is you are omitting a huge piece of the puzzle that's going to enable you to help solve the puzzle.
Yep.
So yes, if you're only going to look at one book or one culture, well, it's not a bad thing in a sense, because you are looking outside of the traditional presentation that's been shown to us. But on the other hand, you're limiting yourself because you're only looking at that piece of information. And there's so many other pieces that we need to look at and to consider. So that is what your work has done. So, you know, when you take when people try to give you grief over this, it's, in my view, extremely unfounded. And I think those folks really need to take a deep breath, take a step back, and really assess where they're coming from, because there's more to it than they think. So that's my piece of it. Yeah.
And here's the danger, and here's the paradox, the irony of all of this, right? Flat Earth, no doubt, was disclosed by the powers that be.
Right.
The powers that have been lying about where we are disclosed Flat Earth and gave it to us deliberately to control it, right? So they gave us the internet, which is why they allow us to share Flat Earth on these platforms, because they want it to come out. They know it needs to come out now for reasons I'll explain later. But here's where the irony is, right? A lot of Flat Earthers have gone from saying, oh, we don't live on a ball because that's a prison system, right? The ball is a prison system. You know, we're not on a ball. They're lying to us. They are hiding things from us. And then they've gone from saying that to saying the earth is flat, there's a dome above us, and that's it, which is even a bigger prison, right? I'd rather be on the ball than be inside a fish tank, right? That's worse. That's worse. When you really stop to think about it, the implications of saying that we're on this plane, there is some glass bowl above us, locking us or trapping us in here, and we're stuck with these entities, is absurd. Yeah. It's lunacy. It's crazy. And that's what the elites want. They want us to feel even more trapped. And that's why a lot of flat earthers are going a bit doolally, because they're feeling even more trapped now. So it's a psychological game. when in actual fact, yes, the Earth is flat. Yes, there is a barrier above us, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing beyond that barrier. That doesn't mean we're locked in here. We're not locked in here. The universe is far, far bigger than we could imagine. It's far more diverse and expansive than the heliocentric model or the conventional mainstream flat Earth model. That's the good news.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It could be a psychological quandary for a lot of people, and it goes back to what we were just saying before. If you constrain yourself to only looking at it from a particular perspective, a certain book, a certain religious aspect, whatever, the key is to break out and to widen the aperture on this so that you understand more of what existence is all about. Now, I agree with you 100%, Martin, and I have said this for a long time, that the whole flat Earth construct that was put out back in, I guess, 2015, so it's about 3 years now, was not organic.
No.
No, it's put out there, and it goes to the elites or the adepts, those in secret societies, however you want to call these folks, the Illuminati, so on, the controllers. They're putting the information out there, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff. Now, I know that sounds very bizarre to a lot of people because it sounds like I'm patting them on the back and giving them credit for something, but that's what they're doing. So if they're going to put it out there and you're not going to grab onto it, then you're going to stay in the land of the profane. You're going to stay in the land of the unknowing. If you grab onto it, but you only run the football 50 yards, then you're only going to get half of the story. If you take the football and you run the entire 100 yards, because a football field for those not in the United States is 100 yards, then you're going to get the full story, or as much of the full story as you possibly can. One of the things, Martin, that I have learned doing the whole Paul McCartney conspiracy is that it was explained to me, I should say, by high-level Freemasons, those in the 32nd and 33rd degrees, that Masons speak masterfully. And it was said to me that when Masons speak masterfully, they can reveal a ton of truth as long as they speak in a way in which it's hidden or occulted. And it's up to us to be able to decipher and understand the hidden and the occulted aspects of what's being presented to us, whether it's being shown to us or whether it's being spoken to us. And so what I see happening here, it's the same thing that I have seen happen when I do the McCartney conspiracy, because I had to learn this, okay? I didn't know anything about masterfully speaking and all that stuff from a Masonry perspective. It was explained to me, and I do trust the people that came to me and explained what it means, that the same thing is happening here. This is being masterfully communicated. So what that means, folks, is that it's hidden, but it's not. If you have to take a step back and you have to peel the layers of the onion back, and once you do that, you will get to the truth. So if they speak the truth, they can speak the truth, and they will, but it's not going to be overt. They're going to do it in a way, it's like a puzzle. It really is. Can you figure this puzzle out, boys and girls? That's Absolutely. How I look at this with regard to how the Masons and the secret societies, and they all flow up into the Illuminati, but I'll call them the controllers. This is what they do. So I don't want to occupy your time here, Martin, because this is your presentation, but that is something that I have learned based upon some of the other work that I've done, and it is applicable here.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Absolutely.
Okay, so did you want to go to the center of the plane, or did you have anything else you wanted to cover before we get
No,
there?
that's it. Let's move on to the center of the plane. So this is our Earth from our perspective. This is where we are. All right. Take that off. Okay. That's the Earth. This is where we are. This is the Antarctic ice wall. Okay, that we all are familiar with within the flat Earth community. And these are the different continents. So as you can see, we've got South America, North America, Alaska, Russia, the Asian countries, Middle East, Africa, United Kingdom, Greenland, Pacific Islands, got the Indian Ocean over here, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Australia. Okay, this is obviously not to scale. It's obviously not exact. There are many flat earthers going around saying, oh, the AE map is false because this country doesn't measure up with that country and this is supposed to be bigger than that. We know. No one has cartographed the earth. We don't have the resources yet to map out these islands.
That's right.
So we're just looking at the big picture at the moment, right? Now, at the North Pole, okay, once you get to a certain latitude, I think it's about, from people who've traveled up there, once you get to about the 90th, 95th degree up north, you come across a barrier, okay? What they call the Arctic Ocean, a whirlpool, if you like. And the whirlpool is around these mountains. Okay, so you'll see a lot of the ancient depictions, particularly in Asia, where they show a ring of ice, some land or people, and then a ring of ice and some land and people. This is what they were trying to depict and tell us or show us, right? So beyond these mountains, right, the Arctic mountains, is another realm, as we've been saying. This is what we currently call Eden, right? And beyond Eden, right at the center, at the core, there is something called Mount Meru. This is the very, very center, the heart of the earth. This is the eye of the storm. This is the navel. This is where everything began from. This is where everything spirals from, physically, consciously, spiritually, etc., etc. Everything is governed from Mount Meru or Mount Olympus, Mount Zion. You hear all these terms being thrown around in different religions and mythologies of this holy mountain or this tree of life, right? The tree of life at the center of the Garden of Eden. It's here, right? So I'm going to depict it as a torus field, something like that. Okay? So this vortex that you're seeing here, we'll call that Mount Meru, the tree of life, right? It is not necessarily a physical plane. It's not completely physical. It's said to be semi-ethereal. Okay, so half physical, half not. And the beings that live there, so there are beings that live there, just like there are beings that live in the other realms, which we'll talk about in a minute, are called the Polarians. This is pole position, right? This is where we get that term pole position from the pole, the center, right? And these Polarians who live at pole position are what the Abrahamic texts referred to as angels, right? We read about angels in the Bible, in the Torah, in the Quran. They talk about these angels, these higher beings. These are the Polarians. The Vedics call them Das avatars, right? The Das avatars, these higher beings of some sort from the center. In modern esoteric terms, you hear people talking about the Pleiadians, right? Pleiades, the Pleiadians. These are these beings, these Polarians at the center. They are the guardians of the galaxy. They are the master root race. Every single human or conscious humanoid or conscious being in existence in the universe began at pole position as a Polarian. That is where you begin your earthly race. Your earthly human race begins at the center as a Polarian. Okay? And then it ripples outwards, or your soul ripples outwards into the other realms, as I spoke about in my first video, the cosmic egg. Okay? So that's the realm at the center. Now these beings, like I said, they're not completely physical. They do not have a skin pigmentation like the other races. They are semi-ethereal. Okay, in other words, they are half physical, half not. And they are sometimes described as being indigo bluish beings. So you see this in a lot of depictions, the blue beings or blue yeah, blue beings. You see it everywhere.
Oh,
This is
like
where that,
Avatar.
like Avatar,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The Vedic texts, if you look at a lot of the Vedic art, there are always these blue beings in the background, or with normal colored beings, right? So you see brown beings, you see lighter beings, and then you see blue beings. They were trying to tell us about these Polarians at the center. Okay?
Okay.
And that's the center. That's where it all begins from. That's the central realm here um, in the middle of the earth.
The very middle.
The very, very middle.
Okay. Got it.
Right?
Okay.
Can I move on?
Yep.
I'll move on to the next realm. Beyond the Polarian realm, right? Beyond this Mount Meru, if you like, or Mount Olympus, beyond the Olympians, is the first current realm. This is what we modernly call the Garden of Eden. In modern terms, we call this the Garden of Eden, or Shambhala, or Hyperborea sometimes. This is the first realm outside the central axis. And this first realm, like we said, was birthed with its own solar system, which is Mercury. So Mercury is the inner sun. And this inner realm, as you can see, is currently a depression, a valley, the congealed drop, as the Japanese called it, the valley of the gods, as a lot of the ancient cultures called it. This is it. This is what we sometimes call hollow earth, the hollow of the earth. There, that is the hollow of the earth. The earth is a plane, but it has a hollow at the center, hollow earth. Okay? Now, the beings that live here are a different race of beings to us over here. So there are beings that live there, and they are physical beings just like us, although they are a different root race, right? So all the 4 different realms have got their own root races, okay, which I'll talk about in a minute. But for now, we're focusing on this one. And the root race of this realm are what are known as the Aryana, or the Aryans. Okay? So the Aryans are the beings that live in the current Garden of Eden. This is the Aryan realm, the realm of the center. And this realm was seeded about 6,000 years ago. I'll explain all that later on in the video. Right? Beyond that, on the outside where we are, this is our realm. This is our domain. So, of course, they're covered with their own electromagnetic field. This will be the Aurora Borealis, the Taurus field, above the Aryan or the Ariana realm, okay? Separating them from us in this realm, okay? In our realm, of course, we've got our own Taurus field. And we, in terms of esoteric knowledge in the universe, are known as the Atlanteans. This is Atlantis. We are the Atlantean realm. We are the Atlantean beings here, where we are, all of us. Regardless of what you look like or sound like or where you're from, on this earth, we are all Atlanteans. Okay? Right? Beyond that...
This is very interesting, Martin, because there are a lot of people trying to find Atlantis, and they believe it's a spot somewhere on Earth, but
yeah,
it is actually a realm, and we reside in it.
Absolutely. We're looking for Atlantis when we are in Atlantis. This is Atlantis.
Right.
Yeah, truth hidden in plain sight, right?
Right.
So here's a bigger model. So like I said, Mount Meru at the center, right? The Aryan realm, that one. Our realm is this one. And of course, we've got our ice wall, the ice barrier, and a Taurus field, which is the Aurora Australis on the outside. And outside us, there is another realm, another domain, right? And this domain has got its own solar system, like I said, governed by Mars and Venus, right? Those are the suns and moons for these beings out here. And these beings are known as the Lemurians. These are the Lemurian beings on the outside of us. Sometimes, in esoteric circles, they are referred to as the reptilians, right? We hear this word a lot, you know, reptilians amongst us. We're being controlled by the reptilians. This is where it comes from, these Lemurians. Okay? These Aryans are sometimes referred to, but I'm just going to go back, as the gods. Right? You hear in a lot of scriptures the gods, or the fallen angels, or the Nephilim that came from heaven. These are the Aryans.
Okay.
The Ariana. That's where that terminology comes from. Okay? So these are the Lemurians, wrongfully known as the reptilians, or rightfully, I don't know. But that's the name that's been given to them, I suppose, over time. They've also got their own ice wall and their own electromagnetic field. And beyond that, in the Saturnian realm, the realm where Saturn and Jupiter are the luminaries, or the suns and moons, you've got the Hyperboreans. These are the Hyperborean beings, sometimes known as the Anunnaki. So you hear this a lot in a lot of scriptures or texts, ancient texts. The Anunnaki who once visited us, this is where they came from. These are the beings, the humanoid beings in this realm. Right? Now, over cyclical time, which I'll explain, these torus fields open and close. Certain things happen. We interact with one another. We lose track of one another. We are joined. We are lost over different ages, right? Which I'm going to explain. Now, in our realm, we've obviously got many races, right? A lot of people will be asking, how does that come into play? We've got 4 main races in our realm where we are. I'm sure we can agree on that, right? We've got the Indian race, the Indo-Asians. We've got the Oriental Asians, like the Chinese, the Malaysians, and the Japanese, right? We've got the white race, I suppose, right? And you've got the black race, right? The darker skinned race. Those are the 4 main races inside our realm. Of course, we've got other sub-root races or mixed races, right? So we've got all the other races in between, right? The Arabs and the Red Indians, all those are mixed races. They are not prime races, if you like. Okay. The prime races are the Indians, Orientals, black and white. Now, I'm willing to bet with my hypothesis, right? There's no evidence for this, but this is my hypothesis, that these 4 prime races in our realm are offshoots or have got DNA traits that were left behind by these other root races, right? So these 4 sub-root races, I'm willing to bet if we went to this outer Hyperborean realm, this realm on the outside, which I think, which I know actually, and I'll explain to you in a minute, was the first realm of creation, the first root race to be created, and the first realm to be created. If you went there, or if you met one of these beings that lives there, I'm willing to bet you'd say, wow, I can see where black people get their traits from, right? I'm sure we'd see some similarities, perhaps the pigmentation of these beings, perhaps the hair, the nose, the eyes, the ears, the face, the body structure, right? You'd say, I see where black people in this realm, like myself, I see where they get their physical, I have to emphasize that, their physical traits from, right? So somehow these beings, at some stage in the past, came to us, they seeded some of their DNA amongst the beings that lived here and left a little bit of themselves, which is what we now know as the black race. Okay? I'm willing to bet if we went to this next realm, the Lemurians, and we met them, these reptilians would say, I see where the Oriental Asians get their traits from. Right? I'm willing to bet Oriental Asians look very similar to these Lemurians. Right?
That might be why with the Asians we see the dragon motif.
The dragon motif, reptilian, right? There's so much dragon depiction within the Oriental races, because that was left behind by these Lemurian races. You can also see where you get that derogatory, which is racist, I think, term of reptilian, right? Oriental Asian people have, the squint eyes, right? Which could be interpreted as like a snake, like a reptile, right? Reptiles generally have that, which is where that word comes from, right? So these beings probably look very similar to the Oriental beings that live in this realm. I'm willing to bet if we went to the center, the current Eden, and we met one of these Ariana beings, the Aryans, would say, ah, I see where white people get their traits from, right? I see where the white beings of this realm get their looks from, their skin pigmentation, their eye color, their hair, all of that has been seeded by these Aryans, these Arianas at the center, right? The Indo-Asians, the Vedics, the Indians, right? The Indian cultures, that pigmentation, that physical body structure, or those physical bodily traits are the original Atlantean prototype, if you like. So when this realm was created, the Atlantean root race, or the Atlantean original body, was the Vedic Indians.
Very interesting, Martin. Now, I know we'll get into this about how it's possible that the different races can traverse the different domains or realms. But as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, they keep talking about colonizing Mars, going to Mars. So, to me, and I know you and I have talked about this, is what they're really saying is that they're going to, or they believe they have figured out a way to make it to the next ring.
Absolutely.
To head over to the next ring, where Mars is actually the sun.
Yes.
Venus is the moon, right?
Yep.
So when they say they're going to colonize Mars, what they're saying is they're going to colonize that part of that particular ring where Mars is the sun.
Absolutely.
Right. And I don't want to get ahead of us here, and but that thought came to mind. I just wanted to put that out there for the audience, and Martin will explain what exactly that means. And he had mentioned before that these toroidal fields during certain periods have alignments where that ability to go in between domains or realms is possible.
Yep, absolutely. I'll get into the nitty-gritties of that in a moment.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right in saying that there's all of a sudden talk about a space force being needed, right? Trump says we've reached a stage where we need a space force militarily and for other reasons, right? So those are Trump's words. There's this push to go and colonize Mars, right? To go invade Mars, to go to Mars, right? This is this outer realm.
Well, it also would explain their preoccupation with sending quote unquote probes out to Saturn, Saturn's rings. So again, this is just me thinking. They seem to be very, very focused on the suns. So Saturn would be the sun in the outer ring. Mars would be the sun in the ring before that. So it seems like they that's where they want to spend their time. They're referring to the suns. Absolutely.
And ours is Apollo.
Yes.
Right? So if you wanted to go to our part of the Earth or go nowhere, you'd call it the Apollo missions, wouldn't you? Like you pointed out in one of our earlier videos, right? So when they say these are the Apollo missions, basically we didn't go anywhere because Apollo is our sun, it's our realm. So that's the code behind that one, as you pointed out before.
Yeah. Well, this is very good. Like I said, Martin, you're closing the gap here. So hopefully, folks, you're getting this and it's making sense to you. It made a lot of sense to me when Martin first did his work and I caught on. So it's very exciting stuff, Martin. Very exciting.
Absolutely. It's also interesting how they say Mercury is the most elusive of all the planets, right? It's the one that they can't quite figure out. They can't quite always see it. It's very elusive, right? Yeah. It's the inner planet. Mercury is the inner planet to Earth, right? And that's because Mercury is the sun at the center.
Yes. Yep. And is it a sun and moon together, or is it
sun
just a sun?
Moon.
Sun and moon. Okay.
And I'll explain why again later on in the video.
Okay. And Mercury, of course, is the messenger. So I guess maybe we'll talk about that later too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Martin. So I think we covered the 4 physical earthly realms and the root races. Is there more to
Yep.
talk about, or should we talk a little bit about um, the cosmic wheel itself?
I just want to close quickly by saying that I don't want people to get stuck in this whole race thing and this to turn into some sort of, people identifying themselves
Right.
with certain races and certain connotations of these words. We've got to remember that we're all physical, we're all spiritual beings having a physical existence, right? These bodies are just avatars. They are bodies. It's a body that my soul uses to navigate this world. So, deep down inside, all of us are Polarians. Every single one of us are Polarians, right? And when we reincarnate, right, in this lifetime, we've all reincarnated into these particular avatars for whatever reasons, right? So, personally, I don't identify as just being a black man. That is not me. That is the avatar or the body that I'm using in this realm, at this time, in this moment. So I'm not related to the Hyperboreans or the Lemurians or the Aryans or any of those. I'm a Polarian at core. That is my soul, as is anyone who's conscious and watching this right now. Right? These are just bodies. We've all, most probably, been all the different sub-races. I've probably been white in a past life. I've probably been Chinese in a past life, Indian, right? I've been all the races in past lives, as is the prescription of experience, right? The meaning of life is experience, learn, grow, move on. So you've got to experience the variety of existence in order for you to learn something and grow and move on, right? So let's not get stuck in this paradigm of relating to your physical being, because that is not who we are. We are spiritual beings. These are just avatars. This is the game of life. The human race is just that. It's a race. We need to stop racing, right? We're not racing anyone. Stop fighting with people and trying to claim or trying to prove that your race is more special than someone else's race because you look different or you sound different or you're from a different part of this plane. Because ultimately, fundamentally, we're all physically Atlanteans, right? Our pigmentation, our hair, our eyes are minute variants, even in our physical genealogy, if you like, right? All human beings in this realm are, 99.6%, is it? Connected genetically. We're
Yes.
99.6%,
Yes.
yeah?
Yeah.
So which means there's only a variance of 0.4% difference. And here we are all fighting about 0.4% difference when we forget about the 99.6%. Right? So we're all Atlanteans, first of all, physically. Spiritually, we're all Polarians. This is where that whole saying is, we're all one. We're all
Right.
one.
Right. Well, I think also we'll talk a little bit about this propensity for people to fight when we get into maybe some of the ages,
Yeah.
right? And that'll explain why there is this bickering and there's fighting and warring and deception and stuff like that. And Martin will take us through that. Now, I had said, Martin, about the cosmic wheel, but I think before we go there, I think we wanted to talk about the creation of the universe from the center out. Did you
Mm-hmm.
want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yeah, so creation of the universe. So those of you who watched the first part of this presentation, I showed you how all the ancient cultures, clearly, all of them, every single one, from the Africas to the Americas to Europe to Asia, all of them described how creation began from the center of the earth, right? So everything is a microcosm of the macrocosm, right? Everything is a reflection of itself. This is how God works. God speaks through us to nature. So if you want truth, like I said in all my videos, your best reference or best proof should always be natural science, right? So creation works exactly like the ripple of water. If there's still water, and you put a drop into water, the ripple always begins from the center and it ripples outwards, right? So that is God's sense of humor, telling us how creation began. If you look at mold, someone sent me recently some photographs of some mold they were growing. Mold always begins from the center and grows into rings going outwards. I had no idea. So mold does the same thing. And mold is creation. It's self-replicating cells, right? And they start from the center and they create a ring, then a bigger ring, and then they fold outwards. Same with a tree, right? When a tree grows, it grows with rings. Those of you who are aware of this, if you cut a tree trunk, you'll see the different rings. And you can actually map the age of the tree by studying the rings. Exactly the same thing with the earth that we live on. In fact, the earth that we live on, a lot of you will now know, is a tree trunk, right? This is a tree trunk, right? The base of the tree trunk that's been cut down because we're in a dark age, which we'll talk about. And the trunk would have been at the center, heading up to the firmament at one stage during the golden age, right? So we are all beings that are living on a tree trunk, in essence. And this is what you're seeing here. You're seeing the rings of the tree trunk, okay? Now, in the very beginning, I won't go into details. I'm just going to skim past it. This is for those who are at advanced stage. I don't need to, go into too much detail. In the beginning, pole position, right, in the universe. The universe was empty, if you like. There was nothing, just the great waters, as all the cultures talked about, right? And on here, on the great waters, the gods, the angels, the spirit beings, the Polarians, us, if you like, we decided to create land, or a playing field, if you like, right? This was the beginning of creation. And this would have been the beginning of the tree of life, or the actual tree of life within the universe, okay? This is when only the gods inhabited the earth or the universe, as many of the ancient cultures talked about, the Olympians, right? When we were all Polarians. There were no physical root races, no solar systems, no land, nothing. Everything was semi-ethereal in the whole universe, okay? And these Polarians, these spirits, we had come down from the firmament, if you like, to inhabit this plane of existence, decided, right, we need to create our first realm, our first experiment, if you like, of existence, our first game for the first race of beings to experience, right? So they created the very first realm, very first land, right? And this very first land is what we would call Hyperborea. This was the very first Garden of Eden, okay? So this is the tree of life, still there, right? Mount Meru, where the Polarians live, pole position, okay? And they pushed, basically, birthed out from the tree of life land, or the first ring of the tree. And this was the Hyperborean realm. This is the very first Garden of Eden, okay? These Polarians, some of these Polarians, then incarnated into an avatar called the Hyperborean avatar, or body of beings, right? To play this game out here. And of course, with the creation of this first realm, was the creation of the very first solar system, which would have been Saturn and Jupiter, which is why Saturn is known as Father Time, because this is when time began, physical time. Father Chronos, time. Time began with Saturn, right, in the Hyperborean realm. Jupiter is known as Mother Rhea. Rhea is the root word of area. This is when area was created, land, right? So Saturn and Jupiter, time and area. Space and time is created. And matter. Matter being the beings and everything else that live in this realm. Okay, is that making sense?
It makes perfect sense to me, yeah.
Right. Now, when a realm is birthed or pushed out from the center outwards, It is birthed with its own solar system, like I said. But this solar system always starts as one at the center. So in the beginning, Saturn and Jupiter were one entity. Okay? Androgynous. This is because the moons are responsible for reincarnation, right? For the reseeding of beings. When a realm is in the Eden stage, there is no death. Right? These beings live for a very long time. I don't think they die personally, which is why there's no need for a moon. The sun and moon are one. Okay?
Okay.
It's only when a realm is pushed away from the Garden of Eden, outward. That pushing away is what also creates the dualistic nature of our solar system. The sun and moon separate. Right? We hear this in ancient cultures where they say there was a time when the moon didn't exist. There was a time when it was only the sun. That is where that mythology comes from.
So birthing out from the center, Martin, and then after a period of time, and I know we'll get into the timeline, then what happens is that particular concentric ring or that realm moves out.
So basically, unlike what we're told against popular belief, time is not linear. Time does not go in a straight line. Time is cyclical, just like a clock, right? A clock starts at 12 o'clock. It goes through the whole day, all the way back to 12 o'clock and resets a new day, right? That's what we observe in everyday reality.
Right.
That is a microcosm of the big macrocosm. Same thing. This cosmic time is what we know as an epoch, right? This beginning all the way around to a new beginning is called an epoch. And epochs, cosmic epochs, are also known as cosmic days, or Platonic years, or Platonic days, as Platonymy explained them, right? This is a cosmic day. And they are normally, some say 25,000 years, I'm going to say 24,000 years, because we've got the 24-hour clock. So I'm just going to expand that natural science to the cosmos and say that the cosmic day is 24,000 years. 24 hours in a day, 24,000 years in a cosmic day. Is that making sense?
Yes. Yep.
So when they began, they went through 24,000 years of existence as just being the Hyperboreans, right? And they had different ages and different experiences and different seasons within that 24,000 years, which I'll talk about a bit later.
Now, Martin, the 24,000 years, would that equate to what is referred to as the precession of the equinox?
Yes, brilliant. Absolutely. Okay. That is what we call the precession of the equinox.
Okay.
Yeah. So when that one ended, the Hyperborean realm was pushed away, like we said, out of the Garden of Eden, right? It now became the second realm to where we currently are. And a new Eden was birthed. A new realm was birthed, right? To begin a new race, a new root race. This is the Lemurian beings, the Lemurians were seeded. Okay? Hyperboreans pushed out, Lemurians seeded from the center outwards, just like that ripple of water we're talking about. Right? Ripple of water, realm is created, pushing the old ripple outward to create space for a new one. This is what you call a pole shift. When people talk about a pole shift happening, this change or this creation of a new realm, a new root race, is when we have a pole shift. So every 24,000 years, every change of precession of the equinox, a pole shift happens, creating a new realm, new root race, a new day, etc., etc.
Okay, so here's another example of mainstream science terminology.
Yes, absolutely.
Pole shifts and what it really means.
Yep, absolutely. So these Polarians, some of them, of course, had now incarnated as Hyperboreans. Some of them are now incarnating as Lemurians to experience this epoch or this round or this realm, if you like, over time. Right? So again, once again, time continues. So when it hit the meridian, when this was created, time reset once again, went all the way around, right? When it got back to the precession or the axis mundi or the meridian, sorry, a new realm was seeded. Once again, history repeats itself. There's nothing new under the sun. Okay? By the way, before I move on, again, when this Lemurian realm was at the center, Venus and Mars were one entity. Right? This was now the Garden of Eden. Saturn and Jupiter had now separated. Now we've got death. We've now got duality because this realm is away from the center. Right? They are now experiencing true duality. They are now away from the godly realm, if you like, the Polarian realm. Right? They're now on their own. You're mature enough to look after yourselves and experience for yourselves your own cycle of life and determine your own fate and your own what's the word? Your own reality, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Martin, this would also, I think, explain when they talk about the, we'll take a look, well, we'll use our realm as an example, where science says that the continents have changed in size and shape and configuration. I guess configuration is a better word to use. And that would be because we have this moving out from the center, and if that's going to happen, then things are going to shift around, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The earth is constantly, the earth, like a tree, because it is a tree, is a living organism. It's growing, constantly growing. This is what creates our natural, I'm going to say natural, earthquakes, the sinkholes that we're seeing. A lot of these natural things that happen to the earth, the cracks that appear all over the earth, that is testament to the fact that the earth is a living organism. It's constantly expanding. Again, a play on words. Mainstream science tells us that we live in an expanding universe, right? The universe is constantly expanding. Yes, it is, and so is the earth, right? Our consciousness expands, the earth expands, everything's always expanding, right? Everything has to expand and grow and move forward. If it didn't, it would stagnate and die. Always
so the ever-expanding universe is their way of telling us that there's this expansion from the center. Is the center considered the singularity, by the way? I meant to ask that before.
In mainstream science, they say the Big Bang happened at the center of the universe and everything rippled outwards, creating all the different planets, blah, 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 blah. So again, you can see the hidden truth there. Everything did begin at the center of the flat earth realm and of the cosmic egg universe.
Okay.
There's some truth there. Expanding outwards. Constantly expanding. Okay?
Okay.
So, again, after that epoch ended, we now had the third epoch, the third birthing of the third root race, right? The third realm. This is the third Garden of Eden, the Atlantean epoch. The Atlantean realm was seeded, right? Again, the Polarians, some of them incarnated as Atlanteans to experience life as an Atlantean, right?
Now, where were the Aryans here, Martin? Where were the Aryans?
Aryans were not yet created.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So the Aryan root race has not yet been created. So this is the Atlantean root race. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So the Atlanteans had their sun and moon, which is our sun and moon. They were one, like we said, during this Garden of Eden period. This is when this realm was at the center, around Mount Meru. This is when we were known as Atlantis. Right? We were the crater continent at the center. Or maybe not crater, we were the mountain at the center. And then something happened to create a crater. And this is the sinking of Atlantis.
Okay.
Okay?
So when they speak about Atlantis, what we're really saying is it's that time when the Atlanteans were the Garden of Eden.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when they say the Atlantean era that was amazing, and these Atlantean beings with the height, they were the masters of the universe. They were the most advanced race of beings on the universe because they were at the center during the last epoch.
Okay.
So they would have been, obviously.
And this also reminds me of the story of Adam and Eve being kicked out of the Garden of Eden. So that sounds to
Absolutely.
me that maybe what that means is the 24,000 years were up,
Yep.
and the Atlanteans moved out to the next ring because the Aryans
Yep.
were created. I know we'll get into the Aryans, but okay. So
Brilliant.
I that was my thought. So I'm tracking okay here.
Brilliantly put, Mike. Excellently put. That is exactly what that allegory is. When they say that Adam and Eve were expelled from the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve weren't two physical beings called Adam and Eve. Obviously, it's an allegory telling us that the beings that were at the center in the Garden of Eden were pushed outward, away from
Okay.
the center, out from the Garden of Eden. But not just the beings, but the physical realm itself as well. This now brings us to the current epoch, the Aryan epoch, right? So at some stage, that Atlantean realm, not some stage, about 6,000 years ago, right? The Atlantean realm was pushed out from the center, right? A big pole shift happened in this realm. We were pushed out to this ring, right? Okay, this is a bit more complex now, but I'll explain what all this is, okay? So this is what I was showing you before. This would be Mount Meru at the center. This would be the new Aryan realm that was seeded 6,000 years ago, the new Garden of Eden. This is our realm, right? The next realm that was pushed outward 6,000 years ago. This is the Lemurian realm, this one here. And this one is the Hyperborean realm, the outer one, right? The rings being pushed out concentrically. Okay? So 6,000 years ago, pole shift happens. Aryan realm is created. The Aryan beings come into play. Okay? So right now, we are in the fourth epoch. Right? And this fourth epoch is known as the Aryan epoch. This is where we are.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Right. Let's now get into the meat and bones of what an epoch is, or how these cosmic epochs work, rather. Let's start from the center. So everything always begins at the center, the Polarian realm, the yin and yang, where everything is balanced, where the gods live, Mount Olympus, right? Where the Olympians are, the angels, okay? This realm, the next realm, the Aryan realm, is divided, or the time, or this 24,000 cycle is divided into four. Just like our everyday clock is also divided into four. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Okay? You could also put the 4 months of the year into this, right? Autumn, winter, spring, summer. Midnight, okay? That would be dawn, which is spring. You're springing into dawn, okay? That would be midday, right? Which is summer, which is gold. And that would be sunset, where the reset happens from. Set, the god Set in Egypt. This is it, right? At 12 o'clock, or 1800 hours, sorry. Is that making sense?
Well, you said 1800 hours would be 6 o'clock position.
6 o'clock, sunset. So if you're looking at the 24-hour clock, because there are 2 clocks within this, sorry, I should have said that.
Yeah.
You've got the 12-hour clock on the outside, and you've got the 24-hour clock on the inside.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Right? So on the 12-hour clock, it is 12 o'clock, right? It's midday
Yes.
on the big clock. But on the 24-hour clock, it's 1800 hours, sunset. It's where the reset happens, meridian, yeah, where the epoch starts and ends, the pole shift.
I see. Okay.
Okay, on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
That's why 12 o'clock is always, the clocks, strikes 12. That's where the bell rings, ding.
Right.
Right, that's where that comes from. Right, okay. Now, within each realm, so I've showed you how it's divided into 4. I've syncretized the 4. It's also divided into what's known as 4 ages, the 4 Yuga ages, right? So the universe has something called the 4 Yuga ages. And these ages are not ages of physical evolution. They are ages of conscious evolution. Okay? So the whole cosmic clock, the whole universe, all the realms, right, experience something called the Great Yuga Ages. The Yuga Ages are the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. And of course, I'm sure you can discern the Iron Age is when our consciousness is at the lowest, collectively. And then it slowly ascends into the Bronze Age, then into the Silver Age, and finally into the Gold Age. And then we have a reset back to Iron Age, and the cycle or the clock continues to turn.
So when it goes from gold, it drops right into the Iron Age, Martin. So
Absolutely.
there's no smooth transition. It just, boom,
No.
drops into
No.
iron.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So in the whole universe, on the whole cosmic clock, the whole 24,000 years, in all the universes, when we have our reset at sunset, right, the first 6,000 years, the whole universe is in universal Iron Age. Right? Everyone is in the Iron Age, cosmic Iron Age. When it hits the 24-hour mark, right, we then start to ascend into, or we shift, rather, not ascend, we shift into the cosmic Bronze Age for another 6,000 years. Right? 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, Iron Age, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, Bronze Age, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock, we get into the Silver Age, and then 9 o'clock, back to 12 o'clock, we're in the Golden Age.
Okay.
And then reset, pole shift. We start again. New realm is birthed, Iron Age, Bronze Age, Silver Age, Golden Age. And that is the clock of time. That is
So
the
within
cycle.
I'm sorry, Martin. So within the macro ages, I'll call them the macro ages that you
Yeah.
just described, underneath that, there are ages which are subsets of the overall age?
So that's what I'm going to get into next.
Okay,
Right?
okay.
So those are the grand Yuga ages, the big macro ages, if you like, that all the realms experience simultaneously. Now, there's also something called the small Yuga ages, the small cycles, that each realm experiences individually. Okay? So those four ages, the gold, silver, bronze, and iron, are experienced by each realm individually as well. For instance, right, when this epoch began, this Aryan epoch, 6,000 years ago here, the Aryans began with the Iron Age at reset. Right? They had to begin with the Iron Age, like we said. Right? So that was the first age they experienced when they were created. This is the story we're told of Avatar. Right? When these beings were near the tree of life, were invaded and destroyed by the outer beings, by the outside beings. That's the story that Avatar is trying to tell us.
Okay.
Plain sight.
All right.
Because they were in the Iron Age, these Aryans. Right? But over time, they started to slowly ascend. Okay? Now, these smaller Iron Ages change every 3,000 years. So every 3,000 years, we go from iron to bronze to silver to gold. Right? So the small Yuga ages are 3,000 years long each. So the first 3,000 years of this epoch, the Aryans were in the Iron Age. After 3,000 years, they shifted into their Bronze Age. Right? And this is where they've been for the last 3,000 years. Because this is where we are now. We're here. Can you see it?
Yep, I can see it.
Right? This is where we are.
Yep.
Interestingly, mainstream tells us that there is something called doomsday clock. Right? And in January this year, they moved the clock to 2 minutes to midnight.
$2,400 hours, yep.
Right? So they're telling us we're 2 minutes away from midnight. Okay? This is where we are. We're here. 2,400 hours on the 24-hour clock, 3 o'clock on the 12-hour clock. We're about to shift. we're in the winter. Right? This is why we're all so lost and confused and don't know what's happening. Our consciousness is so low because within the universe, we're in the winter at the moment.
Okay. So the 2 minutes, would that be a reference to
2 years
years?
away. Yeah, 2 years away. We're 2 years away from midnight.
I see.
Okay. So obviously midnight being 2020, according to my calculations and my theory.
Okay.
Okay. So this would be our realm. Now, I've depicted all these individual smaller ages with these stars. I've put the purple stars to depict the Iron Ages. I put the red stars to depict the Bronze Ages, blue for silver, yellow for gold. Okay? Now, all these realms do not all shift at the same time in the same ages, these smaller ages. Okay? It happens like a clock that is slowly turning. And the clock first turns at the center. So the central realm is the one that experiences the first cycle of time in that epoch. In other words, when the reset happens and this realm was birthed, the Aryans were the first one to experience the first Aryan Iron Age. These other three realms, us, the realm outside and the realm outside that, were still in the golden age of the Atlantean epoch. We hadn't shifted yet.
So Martin, when you birth out, or when the race, I should say the races birth out from the center, do they always start in the Iron Age?
Yes, always start in the Iron Age. That's always the first age.
I see.
Always. But these ones were still in the golden age of the last epoch, of the Atlantean epoch. Okay?
Okay.
Now, when the 3,000 years had elapsed, after 3,000 years, the clock changed, right? And these Aryans shifted into their Bronze Age, the Aryan Bronze Age. This is when we, in this realm, had our reset. This is when the flood happened, the great deluge for us. This was when our little mini reset happened for us to begin our Aryan Iron Age. Is that making sense?
You mean the Atlantean Iron Age?
No, the Aryan. We now left the Atlantean Golden Age. We now entered the Aryan Iron Age, the Aryan epoch. So here, we weren't yet in the Aryan epoch. We're still in the Atlantean epoch.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I'm a little confused. So, okay, so we're in the Iron Age now, so why would it not be the Atlantean Iron Age? I guess that's where I'm stuck.
Because we're now in the Aryan epoch.
Oh, I see. Overall,
the whole thing. Yeah.
yes.
Overall.
Okay, I've got it. Okay.
So this is when we began this new epoch. So over here, technically, even though the cosmic clock had shifted, we were still back in time. We were still backwards in time. We're still in the Atlantean epoch. So the Aryans began the Aryan race, the Aryan epoch. They started it. They led it. And then we followed 3,000 years later because we're the next ripple outwards. So they sent out the Aryan energy, if you like, from the center to us, right? To us, for us to begin our Aryan epoch.
I see.
And of course, just like them, we started the race in the Iron Age, 3,000 years ago. This is when the deluge happened, the great flood. The flood reset, changed everything. Right? Because everything that was Atlantean had to be washed away. The old must die for the new to be born.
Okay, so that's what we were talking about before, the question I asked. We were in the gold and then the reset right into the Iron Age.
Boom.
Yep.
Reset. Start again.
Okay.
Right? Start fresh. And this is where we are. And when this happened, this is when some of the Aryans came into our realm and seeded the current white race, if you like. This is when the angels came and had children with the sons and daughters of men. Right? We hear about these angels that came and had sex with humans. Right? It's also possibly during the last epoch, if you want to rewind, when we were at the center, the Anunnaki came here and seeded the black race. That's why the Anunnaki built their bases in Africa. All Anunnaki history is based in Africa. This is why. Right? Lemurians, when it was the Lemurian thing, they came and they seeded the Oriental races. So you can see all this interdimensional mixing and exchange of energy and DNA and etc. that happens periodically. Okay.
Yep.
So this is where we are now. Okay. Now, when this happened, of course, when we fell, they moved up to bronze. We were now in the iron. These two realms were still in the old Atlantean golden epoch. They have not shifted yet. They've not yet had the Aryan ripple out to them. So they were still back in time, or still are back in time.
Okay.
They've not yet joined the Aryan race.
How does this play into time travel?
Time travel, absolutely. Yeah, we'll talk about that again. What that means, yeah.
All right.
So, right now where we are here, we're about to have another shift, or we are going through another shift right now. The Aryans, right, are now shifting into the Silver Age, into their Silver Age. Okay? And we are now shifting into our Bronze Age. So Aryan Silver Age, Aryan Bronze Age. Right?
Yep.
These beings on the outside, of course, what's going to happen to them? What's happening to them?
Right, the Lemurians will shift down to iron.
Iron, right? Reset. History repeats itself.
Mm-hmm.
So they're now having their reset. When I did this wheel, something struck me. I remembered something and I was like, wow, that explains it. Do you remember in 2015 when we heard those crazy sounds in the skies all over the world?
Yes.
Right? And people were saying, what the hell is that? It sounded like some sort of metal or something was crashing or cracking or breaking in the skies, right?
Right.
And no one knew what it was. All over the world, we're hearing these sounds. People were recording these sounds. I think these Aryans were having their reset. This was the apocalypse happening out here, physical apocalypse. Resetting from gold to iron. They were having their flood, their whatever, catastrophe to reset them, wipe out, start again.
Okay, so what we were hearing, what was being recorded, was an event that was taking place outside of our ring.
I absolutely think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because no one has given an explanation yet. I'm giving an explanation now. I'm saying I think that's what it was. Okay? And it's sinking in with my clock. Anyway.
Yeah.
However, this Saturnian realm, the Hyperborean realm, they've still obviously got one more gold age to go, one more Atlantean gold age to go. So Saturn will rule for another 3,000 years. Hyperborean realm. Not rule, but they'll still be in the golden age. They have not yet joined the Aryan age.
I see. So this is exactly like a water droplet hitting a body of water where it moves out. It's not all happening simultaneously. There is a delay in the shift. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
You can also see, if you map out these stars, you can see the Fibonacci sequence.
Yes.
Right? Look at all the iron ages, the spiral, the golden spiral, bronze ages, silver ages, golden ages. You can see the spiral going all the way around.
Yep.
So vortex mathematics, Fibonacci sequence, golden ratio, everything can be mapped to this calendar and this clock. All of it. Okay? You can see how that's all playing out. So this is where we are now. Now, within these ages, so we've now said they're the small ages, iron, bronze, silver, gold. There are 8 of these in each epoch. So within this epoch, each of these realms will go through 8 of these individual Yuga ages. 8, of course, is the infinity loop, right? This is
Yes.
where this, 8 is the beginning and the end. This is that infinity. That's why they're 8. So 3,000 years each, 8 of them. Then you have the reset in the ninth one. 9 is the end.
And the gold age, according to your clock here, is where we spend the most time.
Absolutely. So when these next 3,000 years elapse, this realm will now go into the new Aryan Golden Age. They will begin the Aryan Golden Age at the center. And then eventually that Golden Age will spiral outwards to all the other realms. Okay? Now, just like our seasons, right? Macrocosm of the microcosm. If you look at the 12 months in a year, right? How many months do we go without any sun? How many days? Not much, right?
Right.
How many months do we go where it's autumn? Not many. A month or 2, right? Same with spring. The sun is present all throughout the year, pretty much. Or most of the year, the sun is present. Is that fair to say?
Yep.
So that's a macrocosm of the microcosm. So the same thing in the universe. We have more golden ages than we have these other ages. So golden age is the predominant one.
Well, that's good news.
That's good news, absolutely. So the ages of darkness are not that many. We've only got to endure fewer years of darkness than we do the brighter years, if you like. Okay, there's more sunshine in the universe than there is darkness, for sure. Okay?
Okay.
So, as you can see, if you map it out, eventually, gold age there, and then we will go into our golden age, and then they will go into the golden age, they will go into the golden age. And when these ages meet up, these torus fields disappear completely. So over here, every 3,000 years, the torus fields are opening and closing, which I'll explain in a minute.
Okay.
As I've explained, torus fields open up over here, exchange of energy, blah, blah, blah. Torus fields close up again. All the individual realms get on with it. Over here, torus fields open up again. Same thing happens.
So the torus fields open up when there's an iron and a gold age mapping or alignment?
Yes. Yes. When there's an iron, when there's a Yuga age alignment, the torus fields open up.
Okay. Not just iron. You're saying a Yuga age. So it could be bronze.
Could be any of these, yes. So when this one happened, these torus fields all opened up 3,000 years ago when we had our flood.
Okay. I understand. Where you have the line every 3,000 years.
Every 3,000 years, there's a opening of the torus fields, but
see.
not necessarily a galactic alignment, which is what we're about to have, because these are the cardinal points, right? North, south, east, and west, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So these are the most important alignments here. This is when the biggest changes happen. I'll explain why in a minute. So let me not lose my train of thought. Okay? Now, when 2 realms have the same age, for instance, like over here, when we had gold with these ones, we were all at the same frequency. We were all vibrating at the same Atlantean gold frequency. So I suspect that maybe we could travel to these realms. Maybe we were in touch with these other beings. Right? We could go between the different realms because we're all at the same frequency. There's no need to cut us off. We're all vibrating at the same frequency. This one was the one that was locked out because they're in a different frequency. They're now in a Aryan Iron Age frequency. These are all in the golden Atlantean Age frequency.
Okay.
And then when this one happened, we were locked out from the outside and the inside because we are in an Iron Age Aryan frequency. They're in a Bronze Age frequency, and these two are probably open because they're both still in the Gold Age frequency. Right?
Yep.
Vice versa, when we start ascending, when we enter the Golden Age and join the Aryan Golden Age, the torus field disappears. This becomes one big land. We all become one again. The Atlanteans and the Aryans are now one. We're heading towards the Golden Age of unity. And eventually, when they're all opened, this is when the whole Earth is opened up. No torus fields. We are one, truly one. Here.
Where everything has the gold star.
Everything has the gold star. This is when the universe is at the height. This is when we are all one. No division. Our DNA is fully activated. All the root races, all the rounds, everything. This is when we're at the highest height of existing on Earth, physically and spiritually. So we're about 12,000 years away from that. Okay.
Very interesting, Martin. Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll have our reset. When the reset happens, this Aryan age will then get pushed outward. A new realm will be created with a new root race. They will begin their Iron Age. All the others, the Aryans, us, the Lemurians, the Hyperboreans, will all be in the old Aryan Golden Age. And the cycle of life continues to turn. The wheel continues to turn.
Martin, do you have any understanding of how many concentric circles will be birthed before Mother Earth is done?
According to esoteric circles, 7. 7 is the number of creation. So there will be 2 more after this. No, 3 more after this. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 more after this.
Okay.
So we've got 3 more epochs to come.
Now this says the plane itself is massive. That's what it says to me.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The universe, the plane, I mean, it's far, far more diverse and expansive than we could even imagine, for sure. Yeah, we're just talking about human root race. What about the different animals and creatures in all the different realms? They're all different, by the way. All of these will have their own different ecosystems, their own different aquarian life, animal life. So the variance of existence is just so diverse. Think of how diverse this realm is. Now imagine the diversity of all these other realms. Now you can see how fairies and mermaids and unicorns are not such crazy ideas now.
Well, even the characters that they depict in Star Wars as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yes, who's to say that those don't exist? They most likely do exist, or they're caricatured off something that does exist, a reality.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
So, within these realms, again, we have a different age called the zodiac ages that some of you might be aware of. So these are even smaller conscious ages. So these iron, bronze, and silver age, these are big shifts in consciousness, extremely big shifts in consciousness. Things change dramatically when a realm goes from iron to bronze, bronze to silver, silver to gold. Huge shifts every 3,000. But within that, there are smaller shifts that happen, smaller conscious shifts. These are called zodiac changes or zodiac ages. A lot of you will know about these. And each Yuga age, so every 24,000 years, each realm has got 12 of these zodiac ages. So 2,000 years each, obviously. Okay? So at the center, the first age is always the age of Aries. Aries, the ram. Aries is always the one pushing forward. You have to arise in Aries. Right? So the Aryans began with the age of Aries. Okay? 2,000 years later, they shifted into the age of Pisces, and then into the age of Aquarius, which they've been in the last 2,000 years, and now they're shifting into the age of Capricorn. So every 2,000 years or so, they shift conscious age. And these conscious ages are slight changes of consciousness, which again, I'll go into detail in a bit when I talk about hours, which we can do now actually. So 6,000 years ago, when we began this epoch, even though we're still in the old golden age of it, Atlantean golden age, we began this epoch with the age of Taurus. Taurus, the bull, right? This is when the Bible began with the bull. The Bible began 6,000 years ago. The Bible is dated 6,000 years, start to finish, because it began 6,000 years ago in the age of Taurus, the bull. In the Old Testament, right, they worshipped what? The golden calf, the bull, remember?
Right.
Right? For the
Right. In
first
fact, I
2,000
was just
years.
thinking about that. That's when Moses came back from
Yeah,
receiving the Ten Commandments and the people were worshiping the golden calf.
absolutely. So it's telling us, that's the allegory. We were in the age of Taurus during that period, the
Right.
beginning of the Old Testament, 6,000 years ago. And then Abraham was told to do what? Stop bull worship and do what? Sacrifice a lamb, ram,
Yeah.
Aries. Aries is the ram. Sacrifice the lamb. Stop bull worship, sacrifice the lamb instead now. We enter the age of Aries. Okay? Then we're in the age of Aries for 2,000 years. And then about 2,000 years ago, we shifted. And who came and appeared? Jesus, the fisher of men. Symbolized by the what? Two fish, right? Christians always symbolize Jesus with the two fish.
Right.
Pisces is the two fish. The age of Pisces, which is the age we've been in. And now we are shifting into the age of Aquarius, the water bearer. Okay?
So this would also explain, Martin, why the Bible, 6,000 years, it's always 6,000 years when we talk about the Bible, 6,000 years as to the creation of man and when everything was created. So the Bible's really talking about that slice of the clock that
Absolutely.
you just explained to us, the gold going into the iron.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of the perspectives in a lot of the religions like the Bible and even the Vedic texts, they're only about 6,000 years. The Sumerian texts are 6,000 years. Right?
Yep.
So a lot of them are from the context of this timeline only. They don't go beyond that. They're only talking about this timeline.
Yep.
So the current Bible that we read really was given to us by the Aryan beings. So when the Bible talks about the lords and the gods, these gods that they're worshiping, Yahweh and all these are Aryan beings. These are the gods that people are worshiping in the Bible when they worship a literal God called Yahweh. This is probably some being that lives in the Aryan realm. These angels that came, the fallen angels, they're talking about the Aryans that, came over during this shift over here.
Yeah. Yep.
And possibly some of the other ones on the outside as well, the Hyperboreans.
Right.
Satan. When they say Satan rules the world, they're talking about the Hyperboreans, the Saturnian root race on the outside. Saturn.
Yeah.
This is Satan, the people are afraid of. So they're not evil per se, but you can see how it's all tying in.
Well, Satan is the adversary.
Absolutely.
Right. That's what it really means.
Absolutely. And of course, there's a shifting of energy in all these realms. So there are good Aryan beings and there are also bad Aryan beings, by the way. So there are Aryan beings who will be going outward, just like there are Atlantean beings going inward and outwards. So there are good and bad, there's duality in all these realms. There are good and bad beings in all these realms. However, fundamentally, overall, the vibration is always highest at the center going out, as you've seen, obviously. So you want to be going to the center, going up, going in, not down and out, because the vibration gets weaker and weaker the further away you are from the center, from yin and yang. Okay? So these elites that we're talking about that have been ruling the world, I think these are some of the bad Aryans who were expelled during the last shift. They came into this realm, and they are the secret families that have been ruling us over many incarnations. These are the fallen angels that came from the center outwards, and they are heading on the way out. Right? And they would have landed, which country do you think they would have landed on during that shift? Poland. These Aryans who came from this polar region would have landed in Poland, land of the poles. This is why Poland is always being fought over by the Russians, the Germans, the Americans. This is why Poland is such a strategic point for a lot of these elites, so to speak. Okay, so you
Okay,
can see
yeah.
how it's all tying up, but that's a whole different presentation for another time,
Yeah, yeah, no, but it's very interesting. Yeah.
right? So again, you can see how all of this is rippling out and how it's reflecting to this clock. So yeah, so now we're leaving the age of Pisces. Pisces in the Iron Age. So Pisces is the age of division. The two fish is the age of belief. It's the age of romance, if you're looking at it from the good side, because all these energies have a negative and a positive. So positive is Pisces was the age of romance. It was the age of love. It was the age of family, if you like. But the negatives is it was the age of belief, the age of control, the age of duality, two fish opposing one another, black versus white, right? Um, tall versus thin, fat versus, you know, everything was dualistic during this age.
Yeah.
A lot of opposites, Muslims versus Christians, right? I'm right, you're wrong. That's a Piscean way of thinking. Aquarius is the opposite. Aquarius is the age of mixing, coming together. It's the age of, Aquarius is depicted with the water pitcher, but it's not an age of water, it's an age of air. It's an air sign. Pisces was a water sign, right? So a lot of water travel. This is when navigation was at its peak. Boats, the British Navy, right? Aquarian. Pisces is air, space, the internet, space travel, aeroplanes. This is Aquarian.
Yeah,
This is
like
telephone,
cloud technology. These things are
cloud
coming to mind
technology,
now. Yeah, yeah,
right? This is all Aquarian energy.
yeah.
You can see that Aquarian is coming in. We're shifting into that. We've shifted into that Aquarian, or we are shifting into it. That's what Aquarius is. But on the bad side, you can see the negative mixing, transgenders, transsexuals, transsexualism, transhumanism, trying to combine machine with man.
Yeah.
That's the negative side of Aquarius, the negative mixing. One world religion, one world government, one world order, all Aquarian, mixing, coming together. Division will end. There will no longer be, I'm better than you. There will no longer be, I'm Christian, so I'm more superior than you because you're Muslim. I'm black, so I'm more superior than you because you're white. All that will be a thing of the past. Because that's Piscean, that's division. So there's good and there's bad in all of this.
Now, Martin, let me ask you this question. It might be out of left field, but what about 2012 and the Mayan calendar? It was a big deal was made about that in the media. What do you think 2012 had any kind of importance with regard to your work here?
Absolutely. So 2012, I think, was the beginning, the official beginning. 2012 was the year of the first trumpet of shifting into, of beginning this bronze Aquarian age shift. This is when the internet really took off. This is when conspiracy theories really started going mainstream, if you like, on YouTube, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is when people really started waking up, around about 2012. The Arab Spring uprisings happened in 2012. The London fires, the riots in America, all those riots, 2012. So 2012 was the official beginning of the Aquarian age. Obviously, these ages, it's not a switch that turns, it's a gradual shifting, but the acceleration began in 2012, and it's been exponentially accelerating. In biblical terms, you could say 2012, on the 21st of the 12th, 2012, which the Mayans predicted, was the beginning of the first trumpet. Right?
So, Martin, even if events are orchestrated or engineered, because I want to make this point because there are going to be people that are listening to us, and I want to make sure that I put this out there. It doesn't really, well, it matters, but you guys will understand what I'm saying. It doesn't really matter whether it's natural, organic, or engineered and orchestrated because it's a process of waking people up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just like we said, there's duality. These elites or these controllers in this realm, that are in our realm, they're not stupid, right? They're not just rogue people doing things because they feel like it. They are following certain universal guidelines. They know they have to follow guidelines. There are guidelines that you have to follow within the universe, which is why they tell us half-truths sometimes, which is why they give us truths in movies, in songs, in books. They have to do those things. They have to balance that energy. So they know what they're doing. But they're in communication with these higher beings, and they are being directed and saying, we can't tell you what to do. We can't tell you how you should experience your Iron Age, but we have to make sure you're following the guidelines. There's only so far you can go. And when the time is right, you must follow the protocols to help those who are ready to wake up. We will give you tools to help you shift into the new age. So we are shifting into a new age. There will be a new world order, regardless. The question now becomes, what kind of new world order? Is it going to be a positive one or a negative one? The elite want it to be in their favor, a negative one. Those of us who are awake and know what's going, we're trying to push for a positive one. A change, a new, positive, Aquarian, Bronze Age world order. But of course, it's going to happen really slowly, because we don't just go into the Bronze Age and it's a flick of a switch. We still obviously have quite a few hundred years before we are where we need to be.
There's a transition period. Yeah.
There's a transition period. It's a very slow, progressive period, but you can certainly see the change. Donald Trump is the last trumpet. So 2020, this is when the galactic alignment will happen, the event horizon, the shift, the official shift here. Right? Midnight, as the doomsday clock has been saying.
Yeah. And this coincides with his Space Force
by 2020.
Announcement too. Yeah.
Agenda 21 needs to be in full effect by 2020. Smart meters everywhere. I just got a letter yesterday telling me that I need to switch to a smart meter by 2020. I laughed. I was like, wow. Right? Everyone needs to be in smart meter by 2020. Okay? The government is putting all governments are putting all kinds of protocols that need to be effected by 2020. This is why, because they know that 2020 is the year that we officially have to leave the Iron Age, Piscean Age, and shift into the Bronze Age, Aquarian Age. This is the official opening of the door and stepping into a new world. Our paradigm will change.
Okay, so to bolster this this discussion we're having, Martin, before we started the show, I mentioned to you about Jeff Bezos of Amazon, and he has his own space program called Blue Origin, and he's running neck and neck there with Elon Musk, talking about all this space travel. Of course, Musk has SpaceX, and Bezos has Blue Origin. So I'm going to read something here for the audience so that I can set this up, Martin. And I want the folks just to kind of listen and just sit with it for a moment, because Jeff Bezos is telling us something here that I think is very important. So this article comes from The Independent. It is an online newspaper out of the UK. You can find Bezos talking about this all over the place. On the internet, just type in Jeff Bezos, Mars colonization, going to Mars, going to the moon, whatever, and you're going to see that he's talking about this a lot. So here's what he has to say. Humans will have to leave the Earth, and the planet will become just a residential, they have that in quotes, zone, according to Amazon boss Jeff Bezos. The coming years will see much of the heavy industry on Earth moved onto other planets, the moons, and even asteroids, he has suggested. Our planet will be reserved for, and he has again in quotes, residential and light industrial uses. To get to that future, Mr. Bezos hopes to have his rocket company, Blue Origin, join the NASA and the European Space Agency to establish a colony on the moon, he has told a space conference. Doing so should be relatively easy since the moon is fairly near to us, kind of an interesting grouping of words, and has a store of water that could be used to create fuel. So there's more to this article, and I'll put the link in the description box below. But very interesting, Martin. Wouldn't you say he's talking about
Yeah.
leaving this ring, this realm, and he's talking about two things: colonizing the moon and colonizing Mars. So, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, there's so much to decode from that. Um, the biggest one, the one that's really, really ringing alarm bells for me is where he's saying that Earth, in other words, where we are here,
Yeah,
will be mostly residential, and all industrial activity will be carried over to extraterrestrial places, right? So obviously, this place being the Iron Age, if they're having a reset, iron is all about industry, right? Iron Age, industry,
right,
building, hard work, labor, which is where we've been, working hard.
right,
We're now entering a Bronze Age, Aquarius, which is about working smart. Aquarius is all about the brain. Iron Age is all about brawn, muscle. So if you're looking at it esoterically, astrologically, there's so much to pick out of that. So for sure, I can see a scenario where they might carry that narrative over and say we've colonized Mars, and all your robots and all your gadgets are being made on Mars, which will literally just be the realm next to us, the realm, um, uh, the Lemurian realm, if you like. And obviously, this article is written with the preemptive suggestion that flat Earth won't take off and it will be crushed, and the globe heliocentric model will reign for a few more 100 years, perhaps, or for a bit longer. So they'll keep that narrative going for sure. And I think when they say things like going to the moon and to Mars, maybe the moon is code for an island, perhaps, one of the islands that's very close to our Antarctic ice wall. So they probably have maps, a mapping or cartographed uh, um, mapping of this outside realm.
yeah.
So they've obviously earmarked maybe certain islands or countries in the outer realm that they're going to use as factory islands, if you like. That's what I'm decoding from that anyway.
Yeah, like I said, I'll put the link in the description box below. And again, this topic, Bezos talks about this all the time, so it's not a unique article. This is something that is relatively easy to find on the internet. And I also found that his project called Blue Origin is very interesting because we spoke a little earlier about the color blue. We talked about the movie Avatar and the blue beings.
Yeah,
Right? So we have in the Hindu religion, Krishna is depicted as a blue god,
yep.
blue color, right? So do you think there's any just a coincidence, or you think that blue
Oh no.
origin?
Yeah, it's oh man, that the occulted message in that is extremely deep. The way I'm reading it is, if they're calling themselves the Blue Origin, they're basically saying we are going to be the gods in this realm. When we go there, we're going to be uh, the Polarian, if you like, representatives in this realm. We're going to be the elite
Yeah.
because blue is the color of God, if you like. Blue shift.
Yes.
Origins is the beginning, right? Blue origins. So they're basically claiming that they are going to be the new gods of this realm.
Now, Martin, with all the work that you've done, a key date seems to be 2020. And I was wondering if you can share your insights about that date.
Yeah, I had a long, hard think about this. When I started this journey, like I was saying earlier on, the big thing was what is the point of all of this? Where are we going, basically? And it's all well and fine saying the earth is flat, we're being lied to, everything's a lie, blah, blah, blah. But if there isn't an end goal or an end product to it or reason for it, then it's kind of pointless. So I started looking at calendars, particularly the ancient calendars and clock systems. The most famous one being the Mayan calendar, the Egyptian dendera stone, the various Indian and Chinese Dharma wheels, and stuff like that. And the more I started looking at them, the more I started realizing that obviously these calendars We're trying to tell us things, or warn us or preempt us or give us clues as to how the seasons of our universe work. So like I said earlier on, there is a time and a season for everything. The sun or the celestial bodies, the wandering planets, they tell us when it's daytime, when it's nighttime. They tell us when it's spring, when it's summer, when to harvest, when to plant, etc., etc. So I think those scales of time are not just limited, obviously, like I was saying earlier on, to what we can observe, what is tangible. That goes on into the microcosm, into the universe. So that's the cosmic cycles of time that we're discussing earlier on. So the next challenge was trying to figure out, where are we in time, cosmologically, in terms of the cosmos, in terms of our consciousness, in terms of astrologically. And that began my journey of trying to decode this calendar, but mainly trying to find out exactly where are we on this calendar and what's to come. 2020 popped up, mainly because of the astrological signs, I suppose you could say. So a lot of astrologers will tell you that in the year 2020, there are going to be a lot of planetary alignments that are going to happen, that haven't happened for a very, very, very long time. So for sure, we're entering the age of Aquarius. There is no doubt about that. And there is argument about whether we're in the age of Aquarius, whether we're entering the age of Aquarius, whether we're about to enter it, but we're definitely on the cusp or in Aquarius, for sure. That's where we're heading. Also, the ages as well. There's a little bit of contention. Are we in the Bronze Age or in the Iron Age? But I'm pretty much sure that we're definitely coming out of the Bronze Age and heading into coming out of the Iron Age and heading into the Bronze Age. That I'm very sure of. We're definitely not heading into the Golden Age. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, we're about to hit the Golden Age." No way. No way. Our consciousness is way too low for that. We're only beginning to wake up. How can we be heading for the Golden Age when we're only just waking up? It's like coming out of winter and going straight into summer. It just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
The other thing is, going back to astrology, I think we're at the end of this video. That's a whole different presentation we could do for another time, maybe. I think that's a whole hour that I would have to sit down and really break down the astrology behind these ages. So I'll definitely leave that shelved for now, and we'll come back and revisit that. There's also a lot of things in the media, like we're saying earlier on. 2020 seems to be bookmarked by a lot of governments, by a lot of corporate organizations. Our social and corporate and cultural collective seems to be pointing to the year 2020 and beyond. The Bilderberg, space agencies, like we're saying earlier on. So for sure, 2020 seems to just be a recurring theme when it comes to big events that are meant to be happening. But also intuitively, I think there's an underlying statement or an underlying feeling within everyone on Earth, regardless of what you believe, whether you think the Earth is flat or not, whether you believe in conspiracy theories or not, whether you are religious or not. We all have a feeling that we're on the cusp of something. Something's about to happen. Some will say, oh, maybe it's a war, a financial crash, the return of Jesus, Allah's return. Who knows? All kinds of people are saying all kinds of things. So I think within the conscious collective, we are all feeling this resonance of something is around the corner. Something big is around the corner. And the signs just keep getting, they keep intensifying year by year, month by year, week by week. So I think there's no argument about that. I think everyone will agree with that point for sure. So what I think is going to happen in 2020, the biggest one is intuitive, like I was saying. So my intuition and inner knowing and inner standing for me is pointing to the year 2020 or around about that time. So I think what's going to happen, this is just intuitive. Like I said, this is my theory. This is my perspective. I could be wrong. I'm going to put a disclaimer right now. A lot of people have said to me, don't put dates on anything because you could be wrong. But I'm not afraid to put a date on it because I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong. I'm not afraid to admit if I'm wrong. If that date comes and goes and nothing happens, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. And we'll revisit that and have a look at it. But for now, I'm going to put a stick in the ground because I feel quite strongly about it. And I'm going to share what I see or how I see things happening according to my understanding. Again, the events themselves could be off. They could be slightly off. They could be extremely off. They could be totally wrong. Or they could be exactly as I'm going to say them. We'll know when the time comes, right? If nothing happens, nothing changes. I was wrong. Life goes on. We revisit it. If something does happen and it's close or it is what I've prophesied, if you like, then all the better. We've been informed. We're consciously prepared. It's not about being afraid or, being prepared physically, buy water and food. I'm not saying anyone should panic or worry about anything. It's more about preparing consciously and mentally so that you're not afraid if or when those things happen. You understand, you have the knowledge and the wisdom to make better informed decisions because you know what is happening rather than being led by a wrong narrative, so to speak. So I think what's going to happen is in the year 2020, we're going to have a galactic alignment, a solar alignment between all our wandering planets, our wandering stars, our suns and moons in the universe, in all the different realms. I think there are going to be two events that are going to happen in 2020. I've been advertising and talking a lot about the event that's going to happen on the 21st of December, 2020, which is the opening of the torus fields, the electromagnetic torus field above our dome. So I think our sun and the sun on the outer realm, the Mars sun, are going to align somehow. The frequency that is going to be generated because of that alignment will allow for that torus field to open up. Our torus field, the big torus field on the outside, on the South Pole, to open up. And this will allow travel between the two realms, where we are and the realm on the outside. And this is when I think, obviously, Trump is planning to go to colonize Mars. Mars, of course, like we're saying, being the realm on the outside, right. The Space Force and all that. So I think that's one of the events that's going to happen. And that's going to be the big event that everyone is going to see. Because that dome is the dome that is above us. That is the dome, that is the magnetic field that is above where we are. So if that opens up, then everyone will see it. There's going to be another smaller one that will happen that might not be as noticeable for most people. So this one is going to be not as obvious. But for those who are looking out and those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, certainly will know what's up. And that's the opening of the torus field at the center, at the North Pole. So they're not going to open at the same time. They're going to open at different times. And the one at the center is going to open on the 21st of June, 2020, which is the summer solstice.
Right.
So you can see the sequence here. On the 21st of June, 2020, when the sun is crossing over along the Tropic of Cancer in the northern hemisphere, that is when the torus field at the center will open up, when the sun is in the north. The sun will align with Mars, the inner sun, the black sun, and that alignment will allow the magnetic field or the resonance or the frequency of the aurora borealis, that dome, to open up. So if there is going to be any travel, space travel, if you like, to the north, that is when it's going to happen during that time, round about that time, the 21st of June. So it's funny, when I mentioned this to a friend, he said to me, oh, it's interesting because the Bible says before Armageddon happens, Jesus will come and collect his people, right? So they won't have to go through tribulation before the times of tribulation. So I thought, oh, that's rather interesting that the north opens first in the summer.
That would be
And then
Mercury then.
that'd be Mercury, yeah. That'd be
Okay.
the Christ that's
The
spoken of,
messenger, yes.
the messenger, absolutely. So those who'll be making a trip to the north, or those who'll be going inwards, up and in, if that's going to happen, I think the easiest time for that to physically happen in this physical body, in whichever way it's going to happen, will happen around that time, around about that time. And of course, when the sun is crossing over along the tropic of Capricorn in December, that is when we're going to have our the Taurus field on the outside opening. So those are the two events. A smaller one in the summer from the Northern Hemisphere point of view, and a bigger one Christmas time in December.
Okay, and just for the audience's sake, a reminder that when Martin and I refer to the Taurus fields, where, well, mainstream science would refer to them as the Van Allen belts.
Yep.
And we discussed this earlier in the show, where their messages are encoded, and once we start to decode them, then it starts to make a lot of sense. And, you know, there's a lot of activity around 2020, as you mentioned. Martin, we talked about this. You've got Space Force. You've got Elon Musk playing around with SpaceX. We mentioned about Jeff Bezos talking about going to Mars, going to the moon. So there's a lot of activity where this is being ramped up now. And so I agree with you that something is imminent. And even if, I'll say this, even if it appears that nothing happened, that doesn't mean that nothing happened. It could mean that the way they play the chessboard, that something did indeed happen. It's just that it was not communicated out to us.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then things will be revealed later on down the road. So as an example, come 2020 in December, there may be something that has to do with a lot of news around Mars.
Yeah.
Right? A picking up of activity in the media, on the internet about Mars.
Yeah.
So to me, that would mean that they are indeed engaged, and but the information has not been communicated or disseminated out to the masses as of yet. So I mean, I think that that's a possibility too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be a very soft disclosure, or it could be a very big disclosure. You know, chemtrails, for instance, I've got my own theory on chemtrails. I think what's happening here is they are slowly getting us used to the idea of having these days where we don't see the sky, where it's just covered in this gray, sort of black, gray blanket, if you like. It's like someone's just sprayed this aerosol can in the sky, and you can't see the sun, we don't see the moon, we don't see the cloud, we don't see anything, we just see this veil. And I have a feeling it's getting us used to that idea. And perhaps my theory is in 2020, when these Taurus fields open up, which a lot of the ancient cultures talked about, by the way, they talked about a time when the stars fell, a time when everyone could see all the planets, could see Saturn and Venus and Mars as clearly as we can see the sun and moon. I think Martin Liedtke, I don't know if you know Martin Liedtke.
Yes, I know of his
He
work.
does. Yeah, I mean, he talks a lot about this stuff. He's found loads of books and maps and writings about you know these things that have happened not so long ago. So for sure, there are times when this has happened where you know the Taurus field has opened up, and it must look like the stars have fallen. Because at the moment when we look at the stars, remember we're seeing them through all the different toroidal fields. We're seeing them through all the different layers of atmosphere, different layers of pollution, all those things. But if the Taurus fields open up, all of a sudden, you know, we'll see them a lot clearer. They'll be a lot bigger, a lot clearer than they are now. So, you know, if you were to describe them to a future generation, you'd say it looked as if the stars had fallen to the ground, right?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. For sure, you know, you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned earlier on the that documentary that you sent me a link to not so long ago.
Oh, Alien Sky by the Thunderbolts
Alien
Project?
Sky.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they really went into depths and explained what the ancient culture said about how the sky seemed to have changed over time and how things seem to have happened in the past. showing different skies and that sort
And
of
a
thing.
different celestial alignment. I know
Absolutely.
it's a brilliant documentary, and like I mentioned, I'll put it in the description box below. I recommend everybody watch that because
Yep.
and the thing is, the Thunderbolts project is not they're heliocentrists,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
and they're describing this different celestial alignment or the night sky from a heliocentric perspective, based upon going back and taking a look at ancient glyphs and stuff like that. So this is very interesting where it's kind of all coming together. It's coalescing,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you're on the heliocentric side of things or you're on the geocentric side of things. There is commonality
Yeah.
in certain aspects of it for people who are from the people who are doing research.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's funny because when I just went on YouTube and I typed in galactic alignment or cosmic alignment 2020, most of them were from heliocentric astronomers saying, "Oh yeah, we're something big is going to happen in 2020," and they're explaining it from the spinning ball model,
yeah,
all the yeah, and they're trying to rationalize it, but they all agree that there is an alignment that has been mentioned in the past, that happened periodically, and astrologically we're heading for that alignment, and it looks like it's going to happen around about 2020, 2021. So this is not just exclusive. I'm not the only person saying this. I was very surprised to find that there are quite a few people talking about big changes happening in 2020. So yeah, chemtrails. Going back to chemtrails, I think the agenda there, possibly a card to be played there, is when this alignment happens, the big one on the 21st of December, and possibly even the smaller one in the northern hemisphere. They'll chemtrail the northern hemisphere, particularly in June. So look out, June 21, round about that time. If it's heavily chemtrailed and really, really, really bad, like the worst we've ever seen it, around about that time for a few days, definitely be wary. Know that something is definitely going on. 100%, 100%. So I'm putting my hat out there and saying, look out for that prediction. And I think that would be to hide this event happening in the north. Um, these things happening with this Van belt, if you like, at
yeah,
the center of the earth. They won't want people to see what's happening there. Keep everyone ignorant to the facts of what's happening there. And then they might come up with some silly story about God knows what. I mean, there was activity last year, wasn't there? There was this big burst of cloud, this blue energy bubble that blew up. I don't know if you remember that. Was it October
yeah,
last year?
yep,
And they said, oh, it was Russia blowing up nukes or something in Siberia. Oh, there's nothing to see. It's just Russia blowing up nuclear weapons in Siberia, which is just madness. And they only said that, like a week after it happened. So at the time, no one said anything. Everyone went, oh, we don't know what it is. Everyone living in that area were all saying it's aliens, it's spaceships, we're being invaded, we've never seen anything like this. So these are natives that have lived there all their lives saying, we've never seen anything like this in our entire lives. We've never heard of anything like this. They
yeah,
were all terrified. And it just sort of went hush hush. I don't think any mainstream newspapers in the West reported it. The only paper that reported it was the Siberian Times, right? I think it was.
okay,
And it's really weird to see. So it just went under the radar. There were a couple of photographers that were there, professional photographers, lucky enough, who took photographs and video footage of this, and they obviously gave it to the Siberian Times. And funny enough, the Siberian Times have since removed that. So I went back to look, and they've removed it from their website. So it was very hard to find any articles about it. Luckily for YouTube, there are people who made videos about it. So there is a reference that did happen. That
yeah,
event happened. But you can see how things can come and go really quickly under the radar without people knowing about them. Same thing happened, I forgot when it was, around about the same time, I think, where we had the red sun. I don't know if you had it in the States.
yes,
Yeah, we had the red sun for about 6 hours. The sun literally turned red.
yep,
And it was like a dusky, husky, weird color where, never seen anything like this before. And the mainstream story was, oh, it's just dust from the Sahara Desert, from Africa,
Right.
blocking the sun 93 million miles away, which is just
It's
insane.
ridiculous.
To say the least, it's just madness. It's just madness. So,
Yeah, and also, Martin, about a year ago, there was a lot of stuff on the alternative media about some of government officials making their way down to Antarctica. And
absolutely.
it was never clear as to what exactly was going on there.
Yep.
But there was some rumblings in the alternative media, I think even in the mainstream media, about
Mainstream as well. The
yeah,
Pope and I think it was the Pope and yeah. Definitely the Pope was involved in that.
yeah, yeah.
I
I think
remember that.
John Kerry from the United States went
That's
there,
it. Yeah,
and some other authorities, if you will, quote unquote, using the term loosely, made
yeah,
their way down to Antarctica. So, that says to me that these are all pieces of the puzzle that perhaps are
yeah.
coming together.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And you know, religious people will say, "Oh, this is all just rubbish. You know, this astrology stuff." But in the Bible, I mean, in the first chapter in the Bible, the first is the first chapter, the first book in Genesis anyway, the first few pages, it clearly says God created the stars for what? To tell us the signs and the seasons of
Right,
change,
right.
right? It's telling you, look at the stars to know that the season is changing, the ages are changing, things are changing. Learn to read the stars, the Meseroth. It's in the Bible, right? Time.
Right.
God speaks to us through the stars, through the sun, through the luminaries. That's why the Creator put those things there, right?
Yeah,
To
that's
to
right.
tell us when it's time.
Well, the Bible is astrotheology to begin with at its very core. So,
Yeah,
if folks don't know that, then you're at a disadvantage really to understanding a lot of other things. That's my
absolutely,
personal opinion, right? They
absolutely.
personified many of the events of the people in the Bible, but it's all allegory for the
Yeah,
most part, and it's pointing toward astrotheology. It's about
yeah,
cosmology, and you have to dig in deeper to really understand it. And when you do begin to understand it, a lot of the stuff that Martin's talking about is going to make a lot more sense.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, so I've not taken this really lightly. I'm putting my neck on the line here
I
and
know.
going public and putting a date and saying this is going to happen on this date and then that date. And I'm sure everyone will be waiting in angst to say, well, see, it didn't happen at all. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. I'm happy to do that because I've done enough research. I've looked into it enough. There's enough evidence for me to justify what I'm saying. I'm not
Right.
just pulling this out of my hat and just saying, it's what I think. There is enough evidence, syncretic evidence pointing to this. So going back to that whole chemtrail thing, I think particularly the December one, I think they will try and hide that event for sure, because they want to keep this paradigm going for as long as possible. So if they can hide the opening of those tourist fields for that short space of time. By the way, I think it's only going to happen for a short space of time. I don't think it's going to open for very long. I would say about 7 days. So on the 21st of December till about the 23rd, everything will start to align. Around about the 23rd, 24th, 25th, that is when the tourist field will officially open and should be open till about the 1st of the 1st, 2021. So that's my prediction, and I've got no evidence for that. That is just my own intuitive something in me just saying, I think that's what it is. 7 days of creation, that magnificent seven. You always get that 7 days.
Right.
Then the eighth day is the day of completion or the day of rest, or the seventh day is the day of rest, rather. And the eighth day is the day of renewal. So I'm going with, I'm using all that, etymology and mathematics and, geometry and all that sacred geometry, try and put all these pieces together and decode these times and these dates. So I think it's going to happen for 7 days, this opening of these fields. And if in 2020, the world is dark, full of chemtrails, and it just looks like there's been no sun for 7 days. We haven't seen the sun or the moon. It's just black, or it's just weird, or the weather is extremely weird. Or if there's disruption, it might just create loads of chaos keep everyone preoccupied with
Yeah.
what's happening here on the earth, right? A big financial crash, maybe. Crash the dollar, crash the pound, crash the big currencies, create chaos here on earth. Maybe a small war, maybe a fake alien invasion, which I think is also a big possibility. I think there are lots of things that are possibly on the cards to be played out. So maybe they'll do a fake alien invasion, right? They've already got these spaceships and stuff. They've already been pre-programming people for an alien invasion, right? They'll attack people. We're being attacked by aliens. Everyone will be so busy trying to survive here on Earth, we won't even notice what's happening in the stars, in the heavens above us. It might be a mix of everything. So a little bit of chemtrailing, the dollar, fake alien invasion, that crashes,
Right.
the financial system, chaos, and then out of that chaos, the phoenix will rise, right?
Right.
Problem, reaction, solution, right? So
Right.
they create the problem, we react out of fear and out of panic. They bring the solution, we take the solution. The solution being one world order, one world government, right? Let's come together. Let's stop this from happening. We've had a big financial collapse. So for this not to ever happen again in the world, let's have one world currency, right? That way we'll never have a financial collapse ever again. We almost went to war, right? Or, we now see that there are forces outside from here, from Earth, that we need to be fighting. Let's have one army. Let's come together as the human race and have one army, like we're saying earlier on. So all these things, I think, could be at play. I think all these things are on the cards. And they might happen as we're discussing now. They might happen slightly differently, or there might be totally different scenarios. But I would say let's keep our eyes peeled and be mentally and consciously prepared just in case.
Yeah, I agree, Martin. And I think, like I said before, that what we're going to see is an uptick in activity with regard to NASA and the space agencies across the world. We're going to, in my view, see a ton of stuff coming out about Mars colonization. And so I would be, my radar will be up for that. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention is 2020 itself. If we take 2020 and we sum the numbers, it's 4, and it goes back to your Fantastic Four video.
Wow.
Okay,
Yep.
so that's something that I was looking at as well. So that's very significant. And maybe if you can just give the audience a little bit of a rundown on the number 4 and what it means.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. I hadn't connected that dot, funny enough, but that's a big one. Yeah, you're right. 2020, the 2 plus the 2, that's the 4.
Right.
A lot of people have said to me recently that, oh, you're putting all these dates. We're not even in the year 2020. I know we're not. I know we're not on the timeline that we've been told we're on. I know the date today is not the date it is today. And these dates have been fabricated. But they've also been fabricated for the controllers themselves to keep track for themselves of where we are on the timeline. That makes sense.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
So that 2020, they've deliberately put the date 2020 to be at that specific time of our cosmos, because
Right.
they know that on that date, it's a significant date, right? So that whole Vision 2020, the 2 plus the 2 being the 4, et cetera, et cetera. So don't worry too much about being engrossed on, oh, what date are we in? Are we in the 17th century? Are we in the year 3000? We'll never know that. In fact, going by this calendar, there is no such thing as a date. Dates reset and set all the time with the changing of ages. It could be a thing that in 2020, if this event is as big as I think it's going to be, time will be reset. People might say, right, we've now got a new world order. Today is the year 1.
Yeah.
We're starting today. Let's cancel. Let's forget about what happened in the past. Let's start today as the human race. Today is year 1. And then we begin the countdown again for the next 2,000 years, right? For the next 3,000 years, whatever it is, right? And then something else happens, reset. So this resetting and setting of time, I think, happens all the time.
Well, they
Definitely.
did it with BC before Christ and CE current era,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
There's a reason why they did that. Yeah.
Right. That's right.
So why would we think that doesn't happen all the time?
Right.
Why assume that was a one-off?
Right.
So I think that's a big possibility that after this event, maybe not straight after 2020, but a little bit afterwards, once the dust has settled and we're now well into this new Bronze Age, they might say, actually, let's press the reset button, start again now. This is a new age. This is a new era. Maybe flat Earth will become um, well known. They'll say, oh, the old paradigm of the ball Earth. We lived. Those
Yeah.
people
It becomes
were
mainstream.
lying to us. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's reset. Let's start again, possibly. But going back to the thing of the number four, yeah, number four is extremely important in terms of our physical reality. Now, all the numbers are significant. So number four is not unique, right? All the numbers have a place
That's
in
right.
reality, for sure, 100%. And they're all just as important as the others. If this
Well,
realm has to have a number, our number is four. We're the fourth epoch. Atlantis was the fourth realm to be created, the fourth paradigm, the fourth root race. So the number four is our number. We're the realm of four. So you see this in our reality. We see, if you watch the Fantastic Four video, I broke it down.
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
brilliant.
everywhere. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. Politics, in finance, in our sports. Every 4 years, we have the Olympics, the World Cup. Every 4 years, there's a financial reset. Those who are in finance will know this. Every 4 years, presidential elections. The four main continents, the four main races, four corner houses. You just see this four everywhere within our reality. When you really look at it, even in religions, all the religions, the four books of Islam, the four Gospels of Jesus Christ, the
Right.
four Buddhists have the four virtue. It's endless. It's endless. It's everywhere. And I think that's because four is our prime number for this realm. That is our phi number for this physical realm. Physical is the root word for physical is phi cycle, number phi, number. And our phi is four. Our number is four. So our
Right.
four cycle, that's the physical, if we're getting deep into it now, our physical reality in this realm is centered around that four. So thank you for bringing up that 2022 plus 2 is 4, because that's tying into to all of this, for sure.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Martin, many will argue that the calendar was altered to deceive us, but it was also altered to benefit them.
Absolutely.
So it goes the other way too. So there's a
Yeah.
reason why they do the things that they do. And also four, we could talk about the four ages or the four yugas. We could talk about the seasons, the four
Yeah.
seasons. So like you said, the number four is everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's no doubts about that. That's not even a conspiracy theory.
Right.
That's just a fact. That
That's a
is just,
fact.
and we can either say, oh, it's just coincidence. All this four we're seeing is just in nature, in reality, it's just happened randomly by coincidence, which to me is just the most ridiculous thing I think anyone can ever say. Or we can say, do you know what? There must be a reason for this. There must be a reason. And I'm presenting my reason for it. Now, the reason could be wrong, but at least I'm presenting something, right? And to me, that reason makes sense, that, it's all linked to telling us who we are, telling us where we are, but most importantly, telling us where we're going and what's to come. So that's the decoding of this reality. Once you understand numbers, once you understand etymology, words, how words work, how numbers work, that is the secret of this reality, where we are, for sure.
Now
No,
you're releasing an animation of your work in December. So this on Facebook. And by the way, I was very pleased to see the response from people to your Facebook post, and especially there were those that who are uh, folks we know in the mainstream flat Earth community that were looking pretty excited about the fact that you're going to release this animation. in December. I think it was December 21st. Is that right?
Yep.
Can you
Yep.
tell us a little bit about that? Because it looks like it's going to be a fantastic piece of work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nob got in touch with me about a week ago, believe it or not. So this is only just really taken off in the last week. Um, so while we've been recording this, we've been talking with Nob and we got chatting, and I sent him a link to the document of this research that I've been doing. And he read through the document and he got back with me straight away and he said, I want to do let's do a feature film. Let's do a proper,
Yeah.
professional, high-end feature film about this. Let's take this to the masses. Let's not just make a conspiracy theory YouTube video about it. Let's really amp this up. Let's approach Netflix and say to Netflix, hey, put this on there. Let's try
Yeah.
and make something that type of quality and really get it out to the
That's
masses.
excellent. Yeah.
So that's the idea behind what we're going to try and do a documentary film sort of quality type production. The information is pretty much going to be almost exactly what we've talked about here, Mike. So this is the live presentation. This is the official launch of this information. So what's going to be in that documentary, for those who are up to date, particularly who've watched what we've just presented, there won't be a great deal of new information in there. It will just be packaged in a more
High production
type,
Yeah.
For the masses sort of thing.
Yes.
Maybe not even as much detail as we've gone into today, for sure. I mean, we've gone into a lot of detail today. But that one is definitely more for the masses. We really felt that, I'm going to carry on doing these ones. Me and you might do a couple more of these if there's
Yeah.
demand for it. People want us to, oh, can you do that again? We didn't
To
really
get into
quite
more
get it.
detail. Yeah.
More detail. We'll do it. I'll carry on doing that until that date. But that one is for mainstream. We're targeting the mainstream. We want this to go mainstream. We really do. We don't want it to just be a closet, hidden flat earth,
Yeah. Yeah. Mike and Martin talking.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a duty to try and wake up the masses for sure. So that's what Norb wants to bring to the table. And I welcome it. I said, great, you're the man for it. He works in that environment.
Yeah.
He's done stuff like that before.
Does
He
great
knows how all
work.
that works.
Yeah.
So I said, if you want to do it and you've got the know-how, I support it, brother. As long as the information is not tainted and as long as we're not selling out,
Right.
we're not, we've got to keep the information true and honest, and we're not going to bend for anyone. If Netflix comes back and says, yeah, great, we want it on Netflix, but you need to leave this out, we'll turn it down and say, all right, fine, leave it. We'll just release it the normal way.
Right. Right.
And that's the thinking behind it.
Yeah. Very good. I know I'm looking forward to it. And Martin, and I've said this so many times, your work is so important. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, the dates, if the dates are a little fluid, that's okay, because what you have behind you, the whole cosmic clock calendar, to me, is really the most important piece of this, to understand the foundational construct of how this works.
Yeah.
And we're still in a process of discovery and exploration and figuring things out.
Yeah.
That's what people have to understand, is that we're still in that process. So, could there be a little mistake here or there? Oh, yeah, absolutely. There could be.
Yeah.
But the big picture is coming together. That's the most important thing, is the big picture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people forget that. I'm seeing it a lot recently where people are almost demanding facts.
Oh, I know.
In the flat earth community, in astrology, questioning me and wanting facts. And I'm saying, guys, we've only just started waking up in the last couple of years. Like,
right.
We've been around for thousands. God knows how long humanity has been around. We've been documenting things for hundreds of years. We've only just realized that the earth is flat and we've been lied to.
2015.
That is 2015, in the last 3-4 years.
Right.
So to try and understand, the details of exactly what the sun is, exactly what the dome is, exactly how time and space and matter works, exactly what's beyond this and beyond that, is just naive and childish. We've got to be realistic. We're only
Yes.
just waking up. So because we're at the beginning of this, we've just got to take baby steps and share things as we go, like I'm doing, and I'm really pushing out the boat, right? I'm putting myself out there and I'm really trying to run really before I can walk. But I'm not afraid to do that because I have a desire to learn and to find out and to want to know. For whatever reasons, I feel I need to find out now and
Yeah.
share it. So look, like you said, Mike, I'm not professing to know all the answers. I'm not professing to be the Messiah who's here to give you all the answers and I've got all the facts and I know everything and my model's correct and this is how everything works. 100% not. I would never ever do that. I'm just saying this is what I found on my journey of seeking and I'm sharing it with you and hopefully we can build on it. Hopefully it's as close to the truth as possible and it will help us when the time comes. When we need this information, it will be beneficial.
Yes. And Martin, for those that are constantly looking for information to be hand delivered to them, my recommendation would be that instead of throwing stones or trying to pick at things, it would be very helpful if those that are doing those types of things would actually get up and go do some of their own research and contribute to the cause.
Yeah,
Versus waiting for people like Martin, myself, and others to unravel the mystery for you, because it is a mystery. And the more people, the more heads we have, the more brain power we have behind trying to figure things out, the easier it's going to be. So
absolutely.
that's my recommendation. So if you're there and you want to just sit in your lounge chair and just throw stones and wait for things to come your way, that's not helpful.
No, it's not. It's not.
you know?
It's not at all. But it's interesting that I think the wheat and the chaff will always separate itself. And I'm
Yeah,
seeing it in my circles. Like I don't get attacked that much by people anymore. People just ignore me now. So the people that are around me, people who leave comments, people who are asking questions in the right way, in a
right.
positive way. They're contributing. They're not just trying to to prove me wrong, which is what I want. Not prove me wrong, but not trying to discredit me.
Discredit you, yeah.
And they're not trying to discredit me, but they are questioning and saying, "Oh, well, maybe what about this and what about that?" in a constructive way,
Yeah,
which is brilliant. So I'm seeing it like you're saying on Facebook. I don't get that many negative comments anymore. I think most people just ignore it because they're like, "Oh, whatever, too much,"
right.
or "He's gone too far. He's crazy. Ignore
Or
him."
they just don't want to believe it.
Or they don't want to believe it. That's fine. I'm happy with that. So it's for those who are resonating with it. Brilliant, and then there's more and more people. There are people who are attacking me. I'm noticing recently, 6 months ago, a year ago, calling me a Satanist, Illuminati, all these things, who are now coming and giving me thumbs up and going, "Yeah, well done. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Oh yeah, I get it now." So I'm seeing a big turn in the tide of people starting to go, "Do you know what? There's something in this. There's something in this," or waking up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of it for sure, for sure.
This resonates. Your work resonates with me more than the actual awakening to the stationary plane. I
Mm,
mean, that was an awakening, obviously, because we got
yeah,
away from the whole globe concept, and that was very important.
yeah,
But then where you've taken it, Martin, is even more explosive. It's more of an awakening
mm,
because you're going down the path of creation,
yeah,
not just a physical construct of how something is, what it looks like or possibly looks like, but you're going beyond that and
yeah,
taking us into the creation aspect of this. And that's, to me, is of the utmost importance because that starts to help people to understand and define really who we are and what are we doing here
yeah,
and what's the purpose. You see,
absolutely.
there's purpose for being here and living these lives and going through this calendar.
Yeah,
And so again, to me, it's very, very important work. So I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but I can't say it enough.
Yeah. It's a friend of mine said something to me, when I got frustrated. I might have mentioned this to you before. A few months ago, I got a bit frustrated about everything, and I was like, why is no one listening? Why is no one helping me? Trying to find out, trying to decode this, trying to push this out. Why aren't people interested? And very wise friend of mine turned around to me and said, Martin, this is not the time for what you're teaching. You're way ahead of your time. The world is not ready for this. You are
Yeah.
saying things that people should be learning maybe 100 years from now. So the information you're sharing now is not meant for the masses who are alive today. This is meant for future generations who will look back in the same way Tesla, and this is the example he gave. Tesla, during his time, people might have gone, this guy is stupid, this guy is crazy, but he was way ahead of his time. But now, today, in 2018, we're looking back at his stuff and going, oh my God, the guy was right. Like,
Yeah. 100 years
let's go
later.
back. Yeah,
Yeah.
100 years later, let's go back and look at what this guy was saying. Free energy. Let's make, people are making Tesla coils now, 100 years later at home.
Right.
So this could be the same thing where today it's not going to be appreciated because it's too far beyond the current frequency of awakening. There's frequencies of awakening, and it happens gradually. And perhaps people like yourself and me and Santos and everyone else, we're slightly ahead of that curve. We're riding the wave just too far ahead. So this stuff that we're doing is a little bit in the future. And maybe we're just here to leave it behind. And only when we die and we move on, people will then, those who will be left behind will be able to look back at it and go, oh, right, okay, now that's
Yeah.
making sense. And that will become maybe,
Yeah.
a template people will then use to really progress.
Right. Right. And I agree with you, Martin. This is leading edge type of research, and there's going to be catch up.
Yeah,
There are going to be folks that will understand it. That's going to be a minority of people, in my view. And but eventually, what will happen is this will become standard issue, if you will, teaching. Once we go down the line, maybe it's 100 years,
yeah,
150, 200 years from now, when people are educated, they go to school, whatever. This is what's going to be taught. It's
yeah,
not going to be the heliocentric model. It's not going to be any of that. It's going
absolutely.
to be this. But that comes with evolving into a higher consciousness,
Yeah,
and that's really what we're talking about here. So, as the consciousness rises, then what happens is then your level of understanding and your knowledge and wisdom also increases, which
yeah,
because you're ready to receive this type of information, you're ready
ab-
to start to understand it and actually do something with it. Uh,
absolutely.
but where we're at today, most of the masses are not there. They're just
No,
not there.
no, 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 definitely not. And there are tiers to this so-called awakening. So there are people that are
Yes.
complete, like we said earlier on, completely asleep. There are some who are half awake, so
Yeah.
they'll go, oh yeah, chemtrails definitely, JFK definitely hoax, but moon landing, fake, flat Earth, ridiculous,
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
And then there are those who will say, oh yeah, I believe in all of that and the moon landing, but flat Earth, you're going too far. And then there are those who then wake up to the next level and go, oh yeah, and the flat Earth, but it's definitely the Bible is the truth, right?
Right.
And then there are those who will go, oh no, even the Bible and religions are fake, and the flat Earth is real, but the veganism stuff, you've gone too far. And then there are those who will go, no, 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 all that is true, including the veganism, but maybe Martin, your stuff is too far, right? So,
Yeah.
so the layers of the onion are just layer after layer, and it's just about peeling those onions. How far back can you peel the onion? How far
Yes.
open-minded are you and ready and prepared are you for new information, for
Yeah.
new frequency?
That was a perfect way to explain it because it's exactly like that. It's like each step on the stairway up,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, and then as soon as you step on the next step, it's like, okay, now I'm here, and you keep
Yeah,
moving up.
yeah.
Um, all right, Martin. So, is there anything else before we continue on with the rest of the discussion that you wanted to talk about with regard to 2020?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think we're probably, I think maybe we need to pencil in a date where we just talk about 2020 and
Okay.
discuss that and explore that and I'll put all the data together, and we'll really have an in-depth conversation, because that date itself and that time frame and that timeline is a whole separate topic. There's so much information around it. That's another hour, I think, of discussion at least, or a couple of hours even. So I think I'll leave it there for now and just say that in 2020, I think there is going to be an alignment. We're going to be shifting out of the age of Pisces, officially shifting. I think we've already begun the shift. Remember, we said it's not just a light switch that you flick, it's a gradual shifting in. But there is a point where we go from darkness to the light is definitely on now. And I think 2020 is that date of, yeah, the light is on now for sure. You know, it's been gradually coming on, but it's officially on now. So we're definitely going to be officially into the age of Aquarius in 2020. But not only that, it's special because we're also shifting a Yuga age. It's the official transition out from our Iron Age into the Bronze Age, you know. So that's the official shift. So it's a double alignment, a double shift happening. And that's great, because if you look along the calendar, it's happening on the cardinal. So you've got the 4 cardinal points, like we said.
Yeah.
You've got north, south, east, west. These 4 cardinal shifts are the big ones. That's when you have all the double and triple shifts. So we're here at 2020. So that's where we're going to have, you know, the double / triple shift. So a lot of things will happen there. Some things will be bigger for other people than for some. For me, personally, I'm looking to go north. I'm looking to somehow end up forward in time travel into the future, into the north, go up. That is where my heart is. That is where my resonance is. That is where my frequency is saying I should be going. A lot of people will be asking, how are you going, Martin? Are you, you know, what are your plans for the trip? I don't know. I really don't know. I've not reached that stage yet. I don't know if I'm physically going to take my family and we're going to get on a boat or a plane and fly in or sail in or walk in. I don't know. I don't know if the beings in there are going to come collect those who are meant to be going, right? That's where I'm being inclined to think that way, that for a lot of people, you will be collected when the time is right, by those who are meant to be collecting you, the beings that are living there, the advanced beings from there, the Aryans. So that's how I'm seeing it. I could be wrong. It might be a spiritual thing. I don't think it's a spiritual thing. Some people are saying, oh, your body doesn't need to go in. No, I think this one is special because it's a physical. You don't have to die. You don't have to leave your body behind. We can physically go in with these bodies. Yeah. I think this is why this is special. I think people have gone in and out of those realms spiritually, reincarnation or spiritually, you know, for sure. But I think this one is special because we can do it physically, because of the type of alignment that's happening, the opening of the Taurus fields. I've got a friend who's talking about, you know, building a Merkaba. So he's studying the ancient scriptures and texts of how to build a Merkaba, build your own spaceship with your own frequency and resonance. So he's got an amazing theory that maybe when the solar systems align, and the frequencies align, it might activate a frequency in our auras, in our own internal solar systems, where maybe you will be able to activate your own Merkaba. Your chakras will align somehow with the galactic alignment at the same time, and we'll build our own our Merkabas, our spaceships, and we'll take ourselves there physically and consciously.
Yeah.
So for me, that's out there. For me, even for me, that's out there. But I'm open-minded. I've said to him, hey man, I'm on board. Let's do it. You do the research and I'll follow you.
Well, this is the thing. That's the discovery and the exploration part of it. And the other scenario, Martin, that I was thinking of as you were speaking was it could very well be as simple as we finish up our work here, and when we cross over and we reincarnate, we incarnate into the inner circle. In other words, that's how we wind up in the Silver Age, in the Aryan domain.
Absolutely.
Right. So it could be as simple as that. We have to finish up the
Absolutely.
work we're doing here,
Yes.
and once we pass away, and then we go down the chute again to incarnate. This time, it's not back here.
Yep.
It's over in the Aryan circle.
Yeah, yeah. So for sure, I think there are a lot of people. For me, I just feel strongly, and this is why maybe I'm driven right now to do
Yeah.
this information and do this knowledge. I'm obsessed with sharing this. It almost feels like my soul is saying, if you want to go, Martin, you've got to do the work now. Do
Yeah.
all your work now. If you don't do the work now, you will have to stay behind and live out the rest of your life in this realm, and then reincarnate maybe once you've passed on, and then you'll move on. I know
Yes.
for sure I'm moving on in this lifetime or the next, for sure. Um, it's just a matter of when and how.
Right.
That's the big
Right.
question. I think you're right. I think there are people who possibly might go in 2020 during that time. I think there are a handful of people who are genuinely ready. I think there'll be a lot of people who maybe are not yet ready to make the physical transition there. So maybe they will stay here for this lifetime, another 20 years, 30 years, and then when they pass on, they will definitely then reincarnate and join us in the next realm. I was joking with a friend of mine, and she was saying that, I don't think I'm ready, Martin. It's just not for me. I'm worried. I want to go, but I'm not ready. I feel like I should, but I said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I said, what's likely going to happen is I'm putting it out there to the universe that in your next life, you're going to be my child. I'm going to I'm going to have a child, and you're going to incarnate as my child. So we're just joking about things like that, but it could be scenarios like that a lot of people will then reincarnate and be born, or I don't know how it's going to work out, but in the next lifetime,
Right.
they'll play out their time here, then join the rest later on.
Well, the worst case scenario is that you're here and you're going from the Iron Age into the Bronze Age, and that's
Yep,
just going to get better. It's
yep,
going to get better. There's going to be changes and challenges and upheaval, but it's all going to settle out in the end,
yep,
and you're going to
yep.
be into that Bronze Age. So either way, there's really goodness on the
Yes.
horizon. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely. Regardless. And you know what? I know I say I'm strongly feeling I'm going to the center, and I am. But equally, if that is not my destiny and I stay behind because I have to, because I have a part to play, or because I still have karmic work to do here, I'm just as happy and
Yeah.
looking forward to the Bronze Age. I'll embrace it just as much, because that new world is going to be a new world of exploration, consciously, physically, mentally. It's going to be a reset and an opportunity for those of us who are consciously awake to help humanity or to reshape humanity, right? We're going to be the pioneers. We're going to be the ones who are going to be bringing in a new way, right? We're the wayseers. So equally, that is just as exciting. There are people within the truther community right now who don't know it, but 100% for sure, a lot of them are going to be very influential people in the new world to come. Very influential. They're going to influence a new way of politics, a new way of finance, a new way of food, a new way of education, a new way of housing. There's Everything is going to be turned upside down, and it's going to be a blank slate. So it's exciting. It's a new book, and
Yep.
we can start writing. Those of us who are consciously awake, we've got the pens, right? We are holding the pens at the moment. And what we write in that book heading into this new Bronze Age is entirely up to us, how
Yeah.
we want to make this transition. So equally, if I don't go to the center and I'm still here in 50 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, whatever, I'm equally as excited. I'm equally as happy and looking forward to it. Either way.
Yeah. No, it's going to be it's going to get better, folks. It's this whole age that we're in, the Iron Age, is all about keeping you down, deception,
Mm.
lies,
Yep.
disconnecting you from source, and so yeah, so it's very easy to have a very negative view of what the future might look like. But again, once you understand the work that Martin's bringing forth, you understand that we're going through a cycle. We talked about the number four and the four cycles, the four seasons, and the four ages. And for me, that's what's happening. So,
Yep.
yep. So, like I said, there's going to be good things on the horizon.
Just before I go, there's something I wanted to share with you. I was laughing. I was speaking to my wife the other day, and I was trying to explain this concept of time travel. And even for her, she was like, this is, time travel. Like, wow, like, how does that even work? Like, what do you mean? Like, is it a conscious thing? And I said, no, it's really simple. It's time travel. The concept of time travel, we've made it into this big thing as if you are physically being transported into a different space. You are, but it's the best way the way I explained it to her was when I was young. I grew up in Africa, in Zimbabwe, and as you know, Zimbabwe is a third world country, particularly Zimbabwe, and where we are technologically and consciously and mentally is way behind the West, way behind. So I'd never been to the West. At the age of 18, I got into a plane on our little airport that's in Zimbabwe that is tiny. I mean, it's just compared to the airports in the West, the technology is just so bad. It's if you've been to Africa, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I arrived at Heathrow Airport, one of the most advanced airports in the world. I time traveled.
Yeah.
I remember looking and thinking, where the hell am I? Am I even on Earth? This is insane. Like,
yeah,
this is madness. The technology was just out of this world as far as I was concerned. Completely out of this world. Things were touch screen and, they were still using keyboards and typewriters where I've just come from a couple of hours ago. And over here, things are all touch screen and beeps and robotics and robot things. Cars are driving themselves, those shuttles. I just thought, wow, this is mad. This is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Simple thing like the underground. We're still using buses, old buses. And I mean old buses that's the transport system. I get here, you've got this underground system. You've got trains under the ground. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I remember thinking all those things and thinking, this is the future. I had time traveled.
Yeah.
In the same way, someone who's grown up in the West and has never been to a third world country, and all they've known is the luxury of first world. If you took them to a village in Africa, right, they've time traveled back in time. They'll be like, wow, people are still living in mud huts and
right.
Still going in the morning to pick up water in buckets. You've traveled back in time.
Right.
That is time travel. That is it. That is exactly it. It's that simple. So you put that on a bigger scale, right? And it's interesting that the backward countries are the ones in the southern hemisphere, Africa, South America, except for Australia, of course, but that's fairly modern. But all the countries around that southern planisphere, if you like, are the ones that are the poorer countries, the ones that are back in time. And the further up north you go, the more advanced things get. In fact, they say the most advanced countries or the best countries to live are the Scandinavian countries, right? Switzerland,
right.
Sweden,
right.
Norway. The most northern countries. It's amazing that the further up north you go, the more conscious the people are, the more advanced the people are, the more technologically and forward thinking the people are. So that doesn't stop. If you go even further into the next realm, multiply that by 3,000, right?
Right.
That's all it is.
Right. That's a great observation, Martin.
Right.
I mean, going from Zimbabwe to Heathrow, and then the whole with the southern part of our plane versus the northern part of our plane. So I hadn't thought about that, and as you're speaking, I'm thinking he's absolutely right.
Absolutely, yeah, it's self-evident. And when I explained that to my wife, she got it straight. She was like, "Oh, that makes sense, definitely." And it's really that simple. And I'm saying that firsthand because I experienced it. I experienced coming out of a third world poor country that is extremely backward. I mean, Zimbabwe is one of the poorest countries at the moment. They've had a rough time, or we've had a rough time, to coming to one of the most advanced countries in the world overnight, within 11 hours, and seeing that difference within 10 hours. I literally time traveled. Yeah. And it took me a few months just to adjust to this new reality, because it was a new reality. It was a new reality. And something even as basic as the people, right? Getting used to the people. So people say, oh, the beings that live there, how is it going to be? But even just the people, I came from a country where um, the majority of the people were dark skinned, black, like myself, right? So that's 90% of Zimbabweans, and 10% are white and Chinese and Indian and whatever. So if you walk in the streets in Zimbabwe, all you see is black people. That's all you see, and the odd white person here and there. And then I arrive here, and it's the opposite. It's the exact opposite. So even something that small was a dimensional shift where I'm looking around and thinking, "Holy shit! I can't find any black people, as far as I could tell, because the reality was completely different.
Yeah.
I had literally time traveled, right? So that is exactly the same, but on a much bigger scale. So when we go to these realms, when we emigrate or when we ascend, if you like, to these realms, those going on the outside and those going on the inside, it's going to be a similar transition. So it's almost like that was preparing me for a much bigger shift, if you like.
Right.
Going through that.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
It really is. Someday we'll have to talk about how you made your way from Zimbabwe to up north to the UK.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Maybe the next show we could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Martin. Is there anything else?
No, I think that is pretty much it. I just want to end on a really high note and say, look, nothing to be afraid of, guys. I'm excited. This has given me tremendous peace and joy and happiness and marvel. I now know that the world is not chaotic. The world is not being run by some satanic evil guy sitting on a throne and controlling everything, and God has lost control of everything, which is just, as far as I'm concerned, that's blasphemy. If you're a Christian and you're going around and saying that Satan owns the world, you're a blasphemer. You're saying that God is powerless. You're saying that the creator does not have control of its creation. Not good.
Yeah.
The creator is always in control. Always, always. And there is a time, a season, and a place for everything. And once you understand that, everything makes sense. There's nothing to fear. People are saying, oh, I'm afraid for you, Martin. They're going to kill you. They're going to do this to you. Oh, come on, guys. If you're still afraid, if you're still worrying about even dying, you're not awake. You're still asleep. You have no idea what or where you are. So if anything happened to me physically, I think they even know it. Oh man, I'll come back even stronger. They're helping my karma. They're doing me a favor. So they won't do it. They're not going to make it easy for me.
Yeah.
They're giving me a quick ticket, they won't do it. So I'm not afraid. But also, they know that the time is up. So we're being used, like we said earlier on, me and you, we're being used to help bring this information out. Because if they did it, they would be hanged, right? They're the ones who've been doing it. So if they disclosed it, people will be like, oh, right, now you're telling us the truth, but you've been lying to us.
Right.
Me and you have got nothing to lose, right? We've not been the ones doing the lying.
Right.
So, people are not going to be as angry with us as they would be with them if they disclosed it. So we've been used as tools to disclose this truth. So they're actually celebrating what we're doing in a weird way.
That's what they do, actually. That's what they do. Just not to go off in left field here a little bit, but that's exactly what's going on with the other conspiracy that I've become known for, which is the McCartney conspiracy, where the revelation of what's really going on, or what really went on, and what it's really all about is not coming from the mainstream channels. It is coming out through alternative channels, because it's exactly what you just said, Martin. It is the disclosure has to come from outside, because the insiders, if they came out and started talking about it, people would say, oh, so you've been lying to me since day one?
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what happens is it migrates its way away from them.
Yep.
And it gets to people and channels and venues that are not associated with the original lie or deception.
Absolutely.
And it gets out that way. It gets out that way. Yeah. So I completely get it. Okay, so folks, Martin and I have recorded these segments over multiple days, and when we've been able to catch up. And so, what we're going to do now is, or what I'm going to do is, we're going to move from this segment here, and we're going to move to another segment that Martin and I have recorded on a different day. But you, as the viewer, will watch it as one seamless presentation. So if it does seem a little
Mike,
choppy, yeah, if it does seem a little choppy, that's the reason why. So, Martin, thank you again, and we'll move to the next segment.
thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure and an honor. And I look forward to our next chat. Um, like how we were talking about um, in this realm, we have the three types of people, I suppose. You've got the positives, the neutrals, the negatives.
Yes.
The positives being the ones that are going forward, plus the negatives being the ones that are going backwards to the outer realms, and the neutrals being the majority who are staying in this realm. Now, according to the laws of the universe, as above, so below, as within, so without, the same would be for the other realms as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
I'd imagine it has to work the same way. So by that logic, in the outer realm, in the Lemurian realm, the realm beyond the South Pole, there must be a similar thing happening right now. There must be positive Lemurians, neutral Lemurians, and negative Lemurians. The negatives will probably be looking to go outward to the Hyperborean realm, the realm of Saturn, where Saturn is. The neutrals will be staying where they are, and the positives will be moving upward to the higher state of to the higher realm of consciousness, which is where we are. So it is possible that after this event, there might be a few Lemurian beings, few reptilian beings, if you like, that might be here. They might come here, right? They've upgraded. They've moved up from where they are. Likewise, in the Aryan realm, exactly the same thing. There must be positive Aryans, neutral Aryans, and negative Aryans. So it's likely that there are Aryans that are positive, that are looking to ascend into Mount Meru to become a Polarian, to be one with their original self, if you like.
Okay.
Right? They're now really going up and out, if you like, out of the game. So those are the positive Aryans. The majority of the Aryans will be neutrals, the ones that are staying there through that silver age. And there'll also be a few negative Aryans who will be coming out to where we are now.
Okay,
right?
So that would explain the traversing or the mix of the domains. Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I wonder if this is where the story in the Bible of the Antichrist comes from. Right? The Antichrist is going to appear, he's going to come and cure diseases, he's going to make the world good for a few thousand years, but he's going to say he's God, blah, 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 blah. It might be an Aryan being, so this Bible, maybe that's a part of the Bible that was written by some of these Aryan beings, and the prophecies are coming true because they knew what was to come.
Right.
They were foretelling what they were going to do. That makes sense?
Yes. So basically they were detailing out a plan, a roadmap.
A plan. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Pre-programming. Yeah. So I think there is definitely, that is a possibility. I watched a movie recently called Bright. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it. Will Smith. No.
You really have to see it. And when I saw it, I was just gobsmacked. And I think they are trying to warn us, or trying to tell us, or pre-program us to this reality. Because the movie itself, it's a Netflix movie. And basically it's a story about the future world, near future world, where our world is not invaded. It sort of kicks off in the middle, where there are two other races of beings added to our reality. And one is the orcs, and the other one is the elves.
Interesting.
And the orc beings are kind of like ugly, depicted as being ugly, not so good, a bit backward. They're in the ghettos, but they're like good people. But there's a lot of racism against orcs. And on the other side, in the good part of New York, are the elves, the elf beings, and these are the advanced beings. They're supposed to be better than humans, or they think they're better than humans, and they've segregated themselves, and they are racist to human beings and orcs.
Okay.
There's this new racial thing happening between elves, humans, and orcs.
I see. Okay.
Right? And basically, without spoiling it, the premise is Will Smith is a police officer, and this orc is the first orc to be inaugurated to become a police officer. It's the first orc to be made a police officer. And there's a lot of racism. So Will Smith is supposed to be helping or guiding this orc through this transitional process as they welcome orcs into society.
Okay.
It's fascinating. So I'm seeing that as the elves are the Aryans, because the elves are the wealthy ones, the ones with all the technology, all the knowledge, all the information. They're kind of secluded. They're kind of ruling the world in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the orcs are the Lemurians, the outer beings that have just come in. They're the ones that are looked down upon. And it's interesting that both not both, but the orcs are vegan.
Interesting. Okay.
They're vegan, yeah. And they're saying, I can't understand why you guys eat meat. And I think the elves as well are vegan. And they're saying, I can't understand why you guys eat meat. Well, why do you guys do this? It's savagery. But another good point, which you need to look out for when you watch it, in one of the scenes, the orc, there's a racist thing that happens against the orc, and they're all laughing at him. And the orc turns around to Will Smith and says, you humans, why can't you let go of something that happened 2,000 years ago? Let bygones be bygones.
Okay.
But they don't tell us what it is. He just says that in passing.
Okay.
You need to watch it. It's really good. If anyone's seen it, maybe you'll see the reference of what we're talking about with the elves, the orcs, the elves being Aryans, the orcs being the Lemurians, the coming together. I definitely see that scenario.
Very good. I'll have to watch it. Now, Martin, it's Bright, Bright,
Bright, yes.
on Netflix.
Highly recommended.
Okay.
But you see that theme in a lot of movies. Orcs and elves.
Yeah.
Humans, orcs, elves. It's in many, many movies. I think Harry Potter, is it? Is it Harry Potter?
I'm not familiar, believe it or not, with the Harry Potter series. I watched, I think, the
Yeah.
first movie. That was it.
Yeah, I haven't really looked at it, but someone did point that out to me when I said, they were like, oh yeah, the same thing is in, I think it's Harry Potter, elves and orcs and humans. Many, many movies. So I think
Okay.
it's kind of like they're trying to get us used to that idea, or it's kind of like a predictive programming, conditioning. But I think it only makes sense that if some of us are planning to go to Mars, to the outer lands, and some of us are planning to go in, then it's exactly the same on both sides.
Okay. Very good. All right. So that's food for thought.
And also, we were talking earlier on about Hitler, right, and the Nazis, and their obsession with going to the Antarctica and going to Agartha. So I wonder if maybe Agartha is in reference to an island, maybe on the outside in the Lemurian realm, right? Hitler is in Agartha. There's this conspiracy theory that
Yes.
Hitler went to Agartha. He's in inner Earth or whatever.
Hollow
I don't think
Earth.
it's
It was the Hollow Earth. Yeah.
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 So I think that's referencing the outer realms.
Okay.
And I wonder if Hitler was maybe a faction, maybe, of an Atlantean being, because Hitler was an Atlantean, right? Going to seed Aryan influence in the Lemurian realm,
Okay.
right? So there's always this shifting in and out of energy between all the different realms. So I think it's fascinating if that is the scenario.
Yeah, and off camera, you and I talked a little bit about the Germans, Martin, and we had mentioned that the SS, like Himmler, were never found. They just they just disappeared. Yep. So where'd they go?
Yeah.
Yeah, very
Absolutely.
interesting. Yeah.
And there's conspiracy theories that Hitler is in Argentina, which is right at the south, right at the tip. If you look at the AE map, Argentina is the most southern part of land in this realm.
Okay.
So it's interesting that he's been said to have last been seen in Argentina.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's all these conspiracies of Brazil, these inner earth people from Brazil, these alien extraterrestrial beings that are always in Brazil, in Argentina, in that part of the world. It's really interesting to see that paradox. And you also mentioned, you reminded me that, was it 2015, just before Flat Earth took off? There was a lot of talk about elites going to Antarctica. I think it,
Yes.
yeah,
Well, it was, I guess, about a year ago. It
a
was,
year ago.
yeah, a year ago, where there was a lot of chit chat about elites going to Antarctica. And that was in the mainstream media, and that was also in the alternative media. Of course, the mainstream media didn't make much of it. The alternative media was trying to make something of it, but at the end of the day, nobody really knows what they were doing down there. I think
There
we
was a
said the
lot of,
Pope was there, right? John
yep,
Kerry was a
yeah,
representative from the United States, and other countries convened there.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So no smoke without fire for sure. I think there were possibly some deals being made there between us Atlanteans and the Lemurians out there,
Okay.
and we sent our representatives to go and negotiate.
Yeah. 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 Very good, Martin. Very, very interesting stuff. And
Yeah,
you know, people can chalk it up as just theory. And I mean, a big piece of it is theory, but when you take a look at all of the different pieces that are out there, by itself, it seems meaningless. It seems like nothing. But when you
absolutely.
start to bring in everything else, a lot of it starts to make sense.
It does. It
Yeah,
does. It
yeah,
really, really does. And you see it. I mean, all the truths are always in the movies. And now when I watch movies, the other day I was watching Doctor Strange. And again, all the stuff we're talking about now, if you haven't seen Doctor Strange, same narrative.
yeah,
Beings from other dimensions interacting with us and exchange of information and knowledge and same thing. I
yeah.
watched Orcs. Netflix did a thing called Orcs. Not Walks, World of Warcraft, sorry. World of Warcraft. They made a movie of it. Same thing. These orcs who are behind the veil in another dimension, and the veil is actually like a green sort of, electromagnetic whatever, and they open a portal through it, and then there's this fight between the orcs and the humans, and
Yes.
they're trying to control it's same story, same story.
Even the movie Interstellar, I saw that a while back when it first came out in the movie theater. And in Interstellar, there's a scene where the main character, what's his name? Oh, I forgot the guy's name that plays the quote unquote astronaut, but he
Yeah,
winds up in a realm where there's a barrier. In other words, he can see. I think it's his daughter. I'm trying to remember the
yeah,
movie now, and he's
yeah,
trying to communicate to her, um, but he can't really penetrate that barrier. He could see
yeah,
her, she can't see him,
yeah,
but right there's this wall, and
yes,
right, so everything like it's what you're saying. It's they're depicting it in different ways, where there's
absolutely.
barriers, there's walls, um, which we would refer to, I guess, as the toroidal field.
Yep.
Yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
And
So
another one is Valerian. Have you seen Valerian?
no,
That's
I don't watch a lot of movies, so you're going to catch me in
yeah.
all of this.
There's one called Valerian, City of a Thousand Worlds. Exactly the same thing. They break through the different dimensions, the
Okay.
different walls, the different portals. So and every time they go through a dimension, they're in a new world, a different world with different beings, different reality. And then they're on this mission, then they break another wall, and then they have to try and it's exactly the same thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to put this stuff in the description box so people can go see it and watch it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of truths in movies. So yeah, in a nutshell, I just felt I needed to just add that in there. It's a little bit of an offshoot from the research, but I think it's relevant
Yes.
that, we look out for that possibly that could be a reality. And I wonder, someone was saying to me about the FEMA camps the other day and saying, oh, these FEMA camps, or what are they for? I wonder if, like we said earlier on, these are being built for some of us in the truther community who are not going to be able to deal with that new reality. So if there are other beings that end up in our realm, Lemurians and Aryans, and there are people out there saying, oh, they're demons, they're Satanists, it's from Satan, we must burn them. You need to be locked up because you'll be put in a FEMA camp because, you know.
It's
So,
interesting you should talk about FEMA because here in the U.S., I don't know if you heard about this, but about 2 weeks ago, we received thousands upon thousands of people received a text through their cell phone, and
I
it
heard
was a
about that.
presidential FEMA alert, a test. It was a test.
Wow.
And everybody was trying to figure out, well, what the heck is this? I'm talking about tens of thousands of people, if not much more, received this text. I received it. And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, what the heck is this? And it was a presidential alert, FEMA alert, and it was a test. So, you and I were talking about the dates like 2020 and all the other stuff, Space Force and Jeff Bezos talking about colonizing the moon, the Mars, Elon Musk with his SpaceX. All of this stuff is kind of just really ramping up now. And then we get this text from 2 weeks ago. So what was that all about? People were emailing me and saying, Mike, is there something we should be aware of? Is there some kind of an event like I'm headquarters with this stuff, I don't know.
I get the same thing as well.
I don't know either. But when you bring that in with what we're discussing now, I mean, it's very weird that all of this stuff is kind of rolling up on our doorsteps now.
Yeah. It's all coming together. It's all coming together. But again, once you know what's happening, there's nothing to be afraid of, right?
Yeah.
It's when you don't know what's happening, the masses are going to be. I think people are going to be committing suicide and killing because they'll just be so confused about everything. More so for people who are awake. I think if you're not even awake, you will just go with the flow. So the guy next door, he's just going to go with the flow. He doesn't know any better. He'll just say, well, the government will sort it out. Whatever is happening, I'm sure someone in government is going to sort it out. It's those of us who are half awake, the religious, those are stuck in that religious paradigm. Those who are stuck in the hardcore conspiracy theory that everything is a lie and everything is a conspiracy to kill everyone.
Yeah.
Those are the people who are going to struggle the most to deal with everything. So a lot of the things put in place like FEMA is not to enslave the entire population of Earth, which is just insane. To think that these elites want to lock up every human being on Earth and turn everyone into robots. That is fear propaganda. Fear propaganda. There is an agenda. I'm not saying that there is an agenda for certain things to happen that way, but the overriding thing is not to be feared. There is a shift happening. There are things that are going to happen that we will not understand, and this is why I'm sharing what I'm sharing, that hopefully when they do happen, we can at least kind of make sense of what's happening. There are other beings. Some of them might be fake aliens, for sure. I'm not saying that all of them will always be extraterrestrial from other beings. Perhaps there will be an agenda, with fake aliens. But also perhaps there might be real extraterrestrial beings coming from other realms, just to add to the confusion. Yeah. Yep. So we have to be vigilant. We have to be smart. We have to be calm. We have to be live in love, vibrate at the right frequency.
Yes. Yeah.
Be afraid. That's it. Love.
Yep. Yeah. I agree, Martin. Love will take us a very, very long way. In fact, love is going to take us to the goal line.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. All right, my friend, is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right, Martin, thank you so much. And we'll insert this into our presentation. It's going to be a good one.
Brilliant. Awesome, Mike. I'm done now. No problem. No more text from me.
It's okay. Anytime. All righty.
Cheers, Mike.
Bye-bye, Martin.
Cheers, bye. Thank you.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the description box below. And as always, I would like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can find all my social media and web links by visiting my hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to check out my music and album releases. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone with the next show. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
I was walking down this dusty road.